Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Tonight is Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. It's about 7:30, and tonight is a Planning Zoning Commission public hearing and general meeting. We are Jeremy Ginsburg, Planning Zoning Land Use Director, and myself are here in Town Hall in room 213. In room 213, and we're also having this meeting held via virtual via GoToMeeting as per the governor's orders. Right now, our meeting's scheduled to do a public hearing first. I want to see if it would be okay if we switch the order to do 2 items on the general meeting, which are just simple, quick votes. We need a vote.
Motion to modify the agenda.
Yeah. Could I have a motion to modify the agenda, please? Jeff Paul makes a motion, Jim Wren makes a second. Fantastic. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to modify the agenda really quick to do 2 votes, which is the proposal to opt out of the parking, and then also the proposal to put forth a change for the Leroy-West affordable housing. I think those should be quick and simple, and then we can get into other items. All right, so here we go with the general meeting. First item on the agenda for this is going to be deliberation possible decision on the following items. Proposal to opt out of multifamily parking requirements set forth in Public Act 2021-2029, Section 8-2 of the General Connecticut Statute. This proposal is the Planning Zoning Commission's official notice of intent to initiate the process by which a municipality may opt out of the provisions of subdivision 9 of subsection D of section 8-2 of the Connecticut General Statute regarding limitations on required parking spaces for multifamily dwelling units. We've deliberated and discussed this multiple times over the past, I want to say 2 years. It's at least 2 years. If you recall, as Jeremy likes to say, we passed a zoning change to our resolutions a few months ago. When this law came into effect, which is the new Connecticut General Statute relative to zoning, it came into effect as of October 1st. When the legislature put forth these new laws, they specifically put in opt-out provisions for certain items, which allows municipalities to keep local control. When we had our public meeting or a public hearing on this, we heard testimony from 2 of our state representatives, which are Terry Wood and Matt Blumenthal, that represent Darien, saying that they put in these opt-out provisions for this sole purpose. So with that said, I want to turn it over to Jeremy. He can explain the schedule and semantics a little bit, and then we can have more discussion on this and then take a vote. Jeremy, take it away.
Sure. In the draft resolution you have before you, it acknowledges that the public hearing was last Tuesday, October 5th, and it outlines the reasons for the opt-out, which is one of the requirements for, as outlined in the state statute, that the reasons that the commission gives for the opt-out be enunciated and specifically called out in their decision. So we have endeavored to do that in your 3-page decision here. If the commission has an affirmative vote, it will then go to the RTM on Monday this week, go to the RTM on Monday, October 18th, 6 days from now. So you can see we aim to publish it later this week in the Stamford Advocate. The reasons are outlined in the draft resolution, and we've talked about them both at the public hearing and other prior meetings. So if there's no further questions or comments on the draft, it may be easiest, Steve, if we just go through one by one to make sure we have everyone on board, or because in this case, we need at least 2/3 vote of the commission. We need at least 4 votes.
That's fine. Does anybody have any questions, comments, scrivener's errors, typos to the draft resolution? Okay, if you do, just raise your hand or scream. No? Okay, you want to go one by one, Jeremy?
Sure.
That
would
you want
probably
me,
be the easiest thing.
you want me to say it? You have my copy. Okay. Thank you. All right, why don't you go through it now?
Sure.
Easy.
They said the reasons are enunciated in the draft resolution, especially paragraphs 3 through 7 outline the commission's reasons.
You want to just read a couple sentences out of them, just for
Sure.
the record, to get to the record? Please? Thank you.
Paragraph 5 especially talks about the fact that the standard established by the Public Act does not ensure that there would be sufficient on-site parking for multifamily projects, including the need for guest visitor parking and for deliveries. Under number 5, the commission notes that many streets in Darien do not allow or have sufficient room for on-street parking. Where on-street parking is permitted, some potential safety concerns exist that the commission would like to further consider. Also, number 5, every winter, usually from December through March, Darien has an overnight parking ban in an effort to safely and effectively allow public works crews to clear the streets of snow and ice. Commission also notes that not all of Darien is walkable to public transit, and therefore many residents have at least one vehicle. The commission also notes that large 3+ bedroom units are likely to have multiple drivers and a higher parking demand. So these are things the commission's discussed in the past, that the commission did reduce its parking requirements a few months ago, back in July, but just not down to the level that the state is now requiring under state statute 8-2. So you can see that the commission decision here is to opt out of that parking requirement.
Okay, and just for one more thing, it is a little bit of what we call local control. I mean, the state, when they drafted the bill, they wanted us to be able to do it. I don't think Darien has to have the same parking requirement as a Bridgeport or a Stanford or a Norwalk, which are cities. Sorry about that. And again, we don't have any municipal parking garages, as Jeremy stated. Again, we said it once before. On other towns and cities such as Stanford, because I drive through it all the time on snow emergencies, they tell residents to go take their cars off the street and move them to municipal garages. We do not have municipal garages. So it's another reason why it's there. With that said, any questions, comments, or if someone wants to call for a vote, you're more than welcome. Okay. Just Jim.
I'll call for a vote.
Fantastic. We have motion to approve as submitted. Jennifer, there's a person behind you waving their hand. We have a second from Jennifer Leahy's son. All those in favor? Say aye. Daughter, sorry about that. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3.
Kara just on.
Jeff Ball, did you vote? There he is. There he is. Carrie Gately, you said yes? Yep, fantastic.
6-0. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. All right, that's that one. Again, we're going to change the agenda and then switch to the reference relative to Leroy-West Affordable Housing Zone. Okay, I'll read it into record, please. Proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Regulation, COZR number 7-2021, put forth by the Darien Planning Zoning Commission. Proposal to amend section 593 of the Darien Zoning Regulations to eliminate the reference to minimum gross floor area of each dwelling unit in the Leroy-West Affordable Housing Overlay Zone, LW Zone. The full text of the proposed zoning regulations is on file and available in the Town Clerk's office and in the Planning and Zoning Office for inspection online at darienct.viewpointcloud.com. Again, we talked about this last week in a number of different times. We changed the minimum requirement for a dwelling unit in every single zone except for Leroy-West, which is an overlay zone, because there was some pending court action, if that's the proper word. So now we're just following through with this on that.
Correct.
We have a draft resolution in our packet again. It's basically the same as what we did for the other two.
Correct.
We just did it for this one. You want to go over it one more time, or is that okay?
No, I think it's self-explanatory. As Steve mentioned, the state statute that passed, Public Act 21-29, does not allow the commission to regulate minimum apartment size. So this draft resolution and this zoning amendment will put the commission in compliance with that state statute. So it's pretty much a no-brainer. We have to do it, and there's no opt-out. We just have to make the change. It's a pretty simple change as we put forth.
Great. Questions, comments, scrivener's errors to the typos to the draft resolution we have in hand? Jim Rand, yes, sir.
If we don't proceed, what remedies does the state have, or can they just simply
No,
force
it's a
it?
good point, Jim. The state would not have the remedy. The remedy would go to the property owner. So if this were a different zoning district, for example, the property owner would have the right to make that proposal for smaller apartments, and the commission couldn't regulate it anyways. So in this case, as you're aware, this zoning district is one parcel. It's at the corner of Leroy Avenue and West Avenue, and it's a built-out parcel. The 16-unit condos were constructed a few years ago. There is not enough on-site parking for them to chop it into smaller condos or apartments. So it's unlikely that within the next 20, 25 years that this is going to really make a difference on this one parcel.
And there's 5 owners of the 5 affordable apartments. There's 1 owner for the 11 apartments because there's 16
I
total.
believe so.
So you'd have to have the whole condominium association basically do it.
So Jim, that's a good question. There's really, in this case, no practical change for the property owners or the people who bought condos on this property.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing
Thanks,
none.
Chairman.
Okay. I'd like to call for a vote. Entertain a motion to approve as submitted.
Kara Gately?
Kara Caitlin makes the motion. Looking for a second. Jeff Ball makes the second. Jennifer makes a third. All those in favor?
1, 2, 3. Jim Rand?
Jeff, yep, there's Jeff's hand. Fantastic. All right. Jim Rand, did you vote, sir? Okay. We have 5 yeses and 1 no. Fantastic. That's what makes the world go around.
Okey-dokey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Just as a side note, there is going to be a P&Z committee tomorrow representing relative to P&Z and H committee of the RTM tomorrow night about the zoning amendment we just approved for parking. So if anybody wants to attend that, it's at 7 o'clock, 7:30 on GoToMeeting or Zoom.
Go to,
Or GoToMeeting. Okay. Want to go back to the public hearing?
let's do it.
Okay. Folks, we're going to switch back to the public hearing and get out of the general meeting. So we will move back to the public hearing. It is now about 7:45. Okay. The first item of the public hearing agenda is proposed amendments to the Darien Zoning Regulations, COZR number 6-2021, put forth by Baywater Housing Partners LLC and Ableist Inc. The proposal to amend section 454A as an apple, the Darien Zoning Regulations relative to Darien's special needs housing overlay zone to make special needs housings in Darien more inclusive by allowing occupancy by persons with developmental disabilities, but whose disabilities do not meet the technical definition of intellectually disabled as defined by section 1-1G of the Connecticut State General Statutes. The amendment will also provide for residency by an income qualified employee per section 454A1 of the regulations of a property's administrator to provide support to the residents. The special needs housing overlay zone is eligible to be applied to properties in the residential zones R2, R1, R1/2, R1/3, and R1/5 on lots that are at least 150% of the minimum lot area, but less than 3/4 of an acre, 32,670 square feet. Maximum density is 12 units located within 2 or more buildings with not more than 6 units per building. The full text of the proposed regulation amendment is on file and available in the Town Clerk's office and the Darien Planning Zoning Office for inspection and online at darien.viewpointcloud.com. Jeremy, what do we got?
This is a proposal to amend the zoning regulations. As part of that, we referred it out to the Western Connecticut Council of Governments. They sent an email dated September 28th saying the opinion of Westcog staff is that the proposal is of local interest and with minimal intermunicipal impact. Therefore, it is not being forwarded to adjacent municipalities, and the regional staff is making no comment. Also, as part of the file, I want to note for the commission and everybody who's here, we did receive a number of letters for the record. I'll try to make sure we note them all specifically. One is from Louisa Knapp. The other is from Cheryl Knapp. Let's see what else we have there. Catherine Pierkowski sent a 3-page letter. Wynn Everts, Executive Director, the ARC of Connecticut, 3-page letter. John and Barbara Alter.
Trish and Andrew Bersani at 11 Glanville Avenue.
Correct.
Okay.
Andre D'Annunzio sent in a letter. Bob Marchese sent in a letter. And as Steve noted, the Bresnahans at 11 Glendale sent a letter. And those are all part of the record here. And I'm sure we'll take in more evidence this evening. If folks did send in a letter, no need to repeat it because all the information that's in the letter is in the record. The applicant has it, the commission has it, been posted to the town website and available. So again, the key for the commission here is we're not changing the site plan on the property. There's no external changes to the property,
Physical structure.
to the physical structure, to the buildings, exterior, or anything like that. It's a change to the zoning regulations. The standard for the commission is whether the zoning regulation amendment is consistent with the town plan of conservation and development. As everyone knows, there was a prior site plan special permit approval for this property. The structure is nearly complete. And there's a prior approval that the applicant needs to comply with relative to site plan and special permit issues.
And they've not applied for their certificate of occupancy yet.
That's correct. At this time, as of today, the applicant has not yet applied for a certificate of occupancy. So I believe there's a little more work to do on finishing off everything and getting our department the proper certifications and as-builts and whatever the commission required to button that up such that we could issue a certificate of occupancy.
Okay, fantastic. We have Bob Maslin tonight?
Bob Maslin's here on behalf of the applicant.
You have me.
There is Bob. Bob, Mr. Maslin, welcome, sir.
Welcome. Can you let me have control of the screen?
You have an echo in your house, Bob.
Too many computers in one place.
Hold on.
I think you're in Command Central in
Craig, can you have control? Okay. No. Little technical difficulty here, but we'll do it.
promise you folks we'll be back in town hall soon.
All right.
Bob, we're still getting feedback from you. Can you make sure that everyone in your room is muted except for you?
Trying. Is it good now? Should be good.
That's yeah, you got it.
You should see on your screen my PowerPoint opening slide. As you know, my name is Robert Maslin. I represent the applicants here. With me in the conference room, I'm down at Ablis, by the way, in their offices in Greenwich. And with me are Amy Montemuro, who is the president and CEO of Ablis Incorporated, and David Genovese of Baywater Housing Partners and Baywater Properties, and you know David. What I thought I would do is run through a little bit of an overview here, and David and Amy will jump in with some discussion as we go along. And then when I'm finished, I'll try to be as brief as I can. When we're finished, we have a couple of parents here and a couple of potential residents that I've instructed to keep their comments very, very short. So here we are. As Jeremy mentioned, and as is in the legal notice, we're asking you, in essence, to change the definition of the disability component of the qualifications from the state statute, which requires an IQ below 70, intelligence quotient below 70, regardless of the person's level of need, to the federal definition that's called developmental disability, which, as you'll see in a moment, is much more inclusive, and it doesn't even mention intelligence quotient in their definition. The second request is to amend 454A3 to allow a staff person to live in each of these houses, in one of the units in each house, for purposes of providing on-premises attention as it may occur. That person has to qualify for the affordable housing on an income level, so it remains an affordable unit. And the third request is to clarify the annual compliance certification. The original version of the text required the housing department or housing authority to certify compliance, which, as I'll mention a little more depth, is just not practical. Now we'll talk about ableist a little bit. Amy, why don't you just slide up here?
Sure.
This is Amy Montemuro, and what I thought I'd do is have her talk a little bit about ableist, so you get a sense of who is going to be the administrator and actually the landlord over at 26 East Lane. It's a nonprofit organization founded in 1951. It's been based in Greenwich, but it's been serving mostly Western Fairfield County up into Richfield. I think you have
Richfield, Norwalk. Yep.
Richfield, Norwalk,
Westport, Wilton.
Westport, and Wilton down to the New York state line and Greenwich. 800 individuals are served, and they all have special needs. Some of them have IQs below 70 and receive DDS funding, others do not. And this is a brief list of their services, and they include everything from birth to the end of life on a support level, including therapies, education and advocacy, life skills, job training, competitive and supported employment, which is very big for ableists, and a choice of residential options, including group homes, home supports, and individual residential assistance. By the way, it has whatever licenses are required by the state. 26 East Lane does not by itself require a license. And finally, ableist works collaboratively with everyone involved in this type of system. Okay, Amy, you want to talk about the REACH program for a second?
Sure. Well, as Bob was saying, we're supporting individuals that do have the IQ above and below 70. Our REACH supported living program, we have individuals living independently, some with home shares, all throughout Stamford and Greenwich. And every touch point for every person that we support is to make sure that they're included in our community, and they have a really full residential, education, employment. That's where our acronym came from. They participate in activities, they're in the community, and they have a healthy lifestyle. This is just one of our training platforms over in Greenwich. It's an ableist gardens and gifts where individuals are able to participate in our businesses so that we can provide job training and help them to join a workforce.
You have pumpkins at Halloween.
We have everything. I definitely.
Feel free to come down and buy a pumpkin. I put this slide together. It's a list of, or I put it in, Amy put it together. It's a list of the employers and volunteer partnerships. I'm not going to go through it, but this in a snapshot should give you a sense of how involved ableist is in these communities that it serves. And now East Lane. David, do you want to kind of slide up here? Amy, just talk about just briefly the REACH program and how this all came together. Maybe the two of you can share.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really evolved, I think, since the first article came out. The amount of overwhelming response from the community, it was really incredible. We received probably between 50 and 60 individuals and families that we've met with that really want an opportunity to live at East Lane. We just didn't have enough, and we want it to be special. We want it to be meaningful. We want each person to have a job, volunteer, whatever it is that they want to do. And it really took on a life of its own. We've certainly learned a lot in the process. The Darien community has been incredible. The amount of outreach welcoming us to the community. And as you can see here, we've partnered with different community partners all throughout Darien that are going to provide job training and businesses. And we are just thrilled and excited to be there.
And what is this photograph?
This is from the Darien Foundation to support our new initiatives, which is the Darien Library Cafe, the equipment that we will be opening next month. This is for the technology and equipment that will be at East Lane. This is for the project search that will be launching in January at the Darien YMCA, and Chromebooks that will help the young adults that are transitioning out of the high school that we partnered with at the Darien Depot.
Okay, I took these photographs yesterday, as a matter of fact. David, you want to just walk them through this, give them a tour?
Just, how we got here and how the buildings ended up looking as they do for those who weren't around when we originally presented it. The idea was basically to create buildings of scale, of a similar scale to single family residential houses in this neighborhood or in many neighborhoods of Darien, and to create a beautiful, residential setting that didn't look institutional in any way, shape, or form. I think we accomplished that working with Dan Conwin Architects. The buildings are built with the highest quality materials, hardy plank siding, spray foam insulation. We actually got a little carried away and put elevators in each building, made all of the units ADA accessible or adaptable, and actually put a generator on, or we're going to be putting a generator on each building, because with power outages for this community, a long-term power outage could be really uncomfortable and unsettling, and we didn't want to do that. Besides, as you know, my partner Penny Glassmeyer set the bar high. She never did anything kind of lower than the highest level of quality, and so we really wanted to kind of set a standard that other people could copy and set the bar as high as we possibly could. I would add also that 2 weeks ago, Ableist had their annual fundraiser and actually named the project as a whole Penny's Place, in honor of Penny Glassmeyer and her contributions to Darien and our work together over the years. These are just some landscaping boundary photos. We have cedar fencing along. There's 6 parking spaces for each home. But I wanted to back up for just a quick sec to remind you also of kind of the history here. When we first approached the board with this idea, we recognized or had discovered this housing shortage, this acute housing shortage or crisis. We thought that this would be a great complement to what we were doing downtown. We proposed 12 units here and 2 units downtown. 2 units would be, just income restricted. Our thinking being that Darien had done an incredible job building more affordable housing over the last number of years, including the Heights of Darien and Old Town Hall Homes for the Royal, what's happening with the Federal Realty Project and what's happening with the Palmers. But there's only one group home in Darien serving 6 individuals. And we know the needs are increasing. The needs of the community for this kind of housing are increasing. So we thought this would be a good approach. The commission, when we presented it, looked favorably upon the idea. There was some original criticism that it wasn't inclusive, that we should scatter the units about through the downtown project. We didn't see the same demand for that kind of housing based on the conversations we'd had with many families. And so we proposed 12 units to be managed by Ableist. We were kind of pressed into a definition of, who could live in this unit? What did it mean to be qualified from a developmental or a disability point of view to live here? We were kind of pressed into this definition of intellectual disability under the Connecticut statutes. We didn't know much about this area. Personally, I did not know a lot about it. I've learned a lot over the last couple of years. The demand came from a lot of people. As Bob mentioned, the definition of the disability, intellectual disability of the Connecticut statutes is someone with an IQ of 70 or below. The applicants that kind of presented themselves after the publicity and the marketing by Ableist around the region have a broader range of disabilities, and the IQs, I hate even talking about this in these terms, but the IQs range from probably the mid-60s to the high 70s. All people in need of support from ableists and life support, all people in the program with ableists. We had a meeting about 3 weeks ago with DDS, with the head of DDS and some of the other staff members of DDS. And we had a site visit by DDS about a week and a half ago, two members of the DDS team and the fire marshal, the state fire marshal. And basically what DDS said to us was that they would like us to broaden the range of disabilities that could be here, and they were supportive of the idea that ableists be allowed to have up to 2 employees living in the location who didn't have disabilities. That would make it more inclusive, and they would be supportive of us, and they would fund 3 potential residents of the project if we were able to modify our zoning amendment in the way that's described for you tonight. So that's why we're here. This is a picture of a site visit we had about a month or 2 ago with all the families and the residents. That's my main man, Andre, in the front. You'll meet Andre later. But it's really an amazing group of people, and they're eager to live here. I would add, we did have the fire marshal inspection today and the chief building inspector today. We passed both. We have a couple of minor things to work through with the building inspector. The elevator inspection is tomorrow. And so we'll be positioned to accomplish the CO, the certificate of occupancy, later this week. And so I would just, conclude. I don't want to talk too long, but I would just conclude by saying that, modifying the amendment in this manner is, from my point of view, having lived this for 3 years or 4 years, it has de minimis impact on intensity of use, if any. It has no impact on intensity of use of the site. It's consistent with the spirit of the project and what we were trying to accomplish. And I hope you'll look favorably upon this request, because we really want to get these folks moved in. They're eager to move in and to begin life in Darien. So thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
The next slide goes through a few of the
Hey,
features.
David, can I interrupt 1 second, Bob?
Sure.
Mr. Genovese, would you mind just stating your name and title for the record, and same with Amy? I don't know.
Oh, I apologize. Sure. Oh, ladies first.
Amy Montemuro, CEO at Ableist.
Okay.
He's a resident of Darien and managing member of Baywater Properties and the manager of Baywater Housing Partners, the applicant.
Thank you, sir.
Spelling is on the first slide.
Yes, it was. I just wanted to make sure you heard it. Thank you.
All right.
Apologize.
Oh, you're interrupted. Could I just interrupt for a quick second and ask, what is DBS that David referred to?
Oh, Department of Developmental Services.
Oh, DDS. Okay, thank you.
That's the group that basically provides funding for
people with the IQ.
people with the intellectual disabilities.
Thanks. It's you guys. If you guys use a lot of acronyms like DDS and IDD and DAD, some of us don't have those memorized as well as you do.
Okay, sorry, we'll make sure we.
That's okay. I mean, I think most of us get it, but if you're going fast,
Okay.
you get what I mean. Thank you. Sorry, Bob. Go ahead.
Kind of like what appraisers do. Here's life at 26 East Lane. Residents voluntarily choose to live here. No one assigns them here. They're not placed here. The idea here is that they take a look. If there's an opening and they qualify, they can sign up. Each resident has his or her own one-year lease, which they can renew at their option. They can also leave at their option. The place is fully accessible, as David mentioned, kitchens in every apartment, so that those who are able to cook or cook with a little bit of help can do so. Again, the key is trying to be as independent in a living setting as they can be. Residents can visit with friends and family in their own apartments or off-site. They can visit with each other. And when they're in this setting together, they tend to do that, I've noticed over the years. Medical and dental appointments are off-site. You hop in the car or get a ride in the van, go to the doctor's office, the dentist's office, or wherever you have to go. Transportation is varied. Staff, available public transportation, which includes, as you'll hear from one of the potential residents, a bus combined with a bicycle. The bus line runs up and down the post road. Or if residents have their own vehicles, they can use those. Those are pretty rare. So if you're worried about suddenly a traffic jam in East Lane, it's not going to happen. Residents participate in the off-site programs that they choose. They are employed at jobs off-site that they choose and other activities that they choose. And they can choose their own service providers. This is an issue that came up when we discussed this project with people from the Department of Developmental Services. We wanted to make sure that Ableist is not going to have a lock on everything at this place. If somebody wants to move in, they're qualified, but they get services from another provider, that's fine. Community involvement in Darien. Amy, maybe you can talk about
Well, I kind of,
your specific.
our LEAP program that is going to be at the Darien Depot is a young adult transition program, which is that soft landing from the high school years to support individuals and get them ready in the workforce. It primarily starts with volunteering in the community, adult education classes, resume writing, career exploration, everything that a young adult needs. This is our project search program. We launched at Greenwich Hospital. We are working right now. We were just licensed by the state and are funded for at the Darien YMCA. The staff have been incredible. We've set up mentors and we'll have a full 10-month rotation of an internship program. The cafe at Darien Library. You're the first to see our new logo. Don't tell anybody. It wasn't supposed to be up there. But we've launched in the Greenwich Library. It's been a huge success. Actually, the governor was just there just about a week ago. And we're really excited to have a cafe at the Darien Library. It's a wonderful partnership, and people will be with and without disabilities will be working together and serving the Darien community.
Okay, I've gone on to text amendments. I put this up here. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to get through this quickly. The definition of intellectual disability, I have highlighted the troublesome parts of it. Prior to age 18 and the IQ less than 70 is a major issue. And the last two bullet points are the major limitations, which really restricts the segment of the special needs population that qualify for this housing. This is the federal definition, and it's actually written in the statute this way, in the statute book. They increased the age of onset to 22. We're proposing to eliminate the age of onset entirely so that ableists can, or whoever can, provide this housing to someone, for example, with a brain injury or for some other problem that they've had, an injury, an illness, have their functional abilities limited. And the key here is instead of an IQ bright line definition, you have substantial functional limitations in 3 or more of the following areas: self-care, receptive and expressive language, learning, mobility, self-direction, capacity for independent living, which is the big one here, and economic self-sufficiency is another big one here, and reflects the individual's needs for a combination and sequence of special, interdisciplinary, or generic services, etc. So the benefits are, obviously, the definition is much more inclusive because it includes people with the IQ above 70, and it includes people who, for some reason, have their onset of their disability occurring after they're 18 or in the federal statute 22. And most importantly, and this is the primary objective down here, the proposed amendment will provide opportunities for persons, this should be with disabilities, to live as independently as possible. The other issue is annual certification. Ableist and agencies like Ableist are uniquely qualified to determine whether somebody qualifies under the disability definition, because they deal with people in this population every day. They're constantly dealing with reports, diagnoses, and the like, and they're providing services. They have regular meetings where they plan services for the individuals they serve, et cetera. So rather than try to have the housing authority, who probably knows nothing about serving people with developmental disabilities, try to certify compliance, there's no reason why Ableist couldn't do it, or a similar agency. In the same way that an affordable housing landlord would make the certification like Avalon for projects that are strictly affordable. The staff resident, I mentioned, this allows somebody who is not disabled to live there, number one. Number two, that person has to qualify based on the income. And significantly for the residents, if something happens overnight, they're there to address it. Additional considerations, and I'll try to wrap up with this. Baywater will make available 2 apartments at Corbin for special needs housing. I know there was some comments about that along the way, and Ableist is going to do that. Eligibility is based on level of need and individual income below 80% of the state median. Eligibility is not based on the individual's source of income or the individual's, that's apostrophe S, eligibility for or receipt of funding for support services from federal, state, or local agencies. What this all means is we're not making, or Ableist is not going to make decisions based on whether or not somebody receives funding from any government agency. The real issue is the disability, the level of need, suitability for the residents, and their income, and that's it. So whether or not they're getting Department of Developmental Services funding doesn't matter. It helps, and it looks like we'll probably get 3 people who are funded, but the others no. And then finally, there's people are talking about this Olmsted case. The Olmsted case itself recognized that there is a need for a range of facilities for care and treatment of people with diverse mental disabilities. And if you know anything about people with disabilities, they run through a whole spectrum where they're very, very compromised to not very compromised, and almost to the point where they can live totally independently, but they're just not there. And that's the range. This housing, the special needs housing overlay zone, does provide housing opportunities for people who are in the not quite there category. And so this is perfectly consistent with the Olmsted case. The Olmsted case involved women who were, in effect, incarcerated in a mental institution, even though they were suitable for life outside the institution. And the Supreme Court agreed with the women and their advocates, and the state, I think it was Pennsylvania, had to place these individuals in a less restrictive setting. So we are consistent with the Supreme Court case. And finally, qualified residents live here by their own choice, and the first residents are looking forward to moving into their new homes. So I'll take questions now, but you want to, and we'll try to organize a couple of people that want to speak. So, Mr. Chairman, any questions? I take that as a no.
Oh, sorry about that. I was muted. I just said thank you, Bob, Amy.
Oh,
Dave.
okay, all right.
I've got a couple of questions and clarifications and whatnot. I was on the commission in 2018, 2016, 2019, when this came up and we approved it. So just for the record straight, there is an existing approval in place. They don't have to make these changes. They want to make these changes. I can tell you that in relative to what Mr. Genovese said earlier, I remember distinctively that when we were debating this and trying to figure it out, we instructed the applicant to start with the state definition of an intellectually disabled person in there. We kind of always thought that was going to come back and get tweaked because we didn't really have a starting point. We didn't want to write our own. And Mr. Maslin's a pretty good researcher and said, let's start with the state definition. And if we got to tweak it based on time, we can tweak it. So I think that's where we are today. And again, this was new territory. They've never done anything in the state. One thing I want to start with.
I know that you folks haven't either.
Right, exactly. It's, we're blazing new trails, and we're also blazing new trails across the state. For full disclosure, in August, I inspected every big project that the town is building that the P&Z Commission approved, and I also did a walk through this thing with other members of the Planning Zoning Department, and it is a very nice building, and it is very close. One thing I just want to do, make sure I heard everything right relative to Amy. In real life, it's expected this is supposed to be a regular 12-unit apartment complex for residents, and it's anticipated that every single person in the building is going to have their own quote-unquote day job. Is that correct?
Yes, they'll have their own day. They work wherever they want, or they may volunteer, or they may, if they can participate in our LEAP program if they want. There's a project search. We're trying to create different things and make sure we have platforms in the local Darien, but some people have a job. One person I think would like to work in Norwalk or has been on a few interviews. Everybody's going to have a day that they choose. We just
Right.
want to make sure that there's opportunities available to them.
Right. So I mean, if my nephew lives here and he works at CVS, that's encouraged and it's fine, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay. Now, in terms of applicants, I heard that, I saw the email or the news article that came out in the middle of the summer, maybe the beginning of the summer, and there was a link on it, and it said, please reach out to Amy at Ableist and had your email address and whatnot. I actually sent it on to my sister because she has a special needs son. I don't think she ever applied, but I heard you say that you got 50 or 60 applicants originally.
Close to 60. Yes.
How does it go? And I think you're in charge. David Genovese and Bayward, they have nothing to do with these applicants. Is that correct, or is he?
No, yeah, they have nothing to do with it. We really wanted a nice community of people that would get along, that would be able to mentor each other, that would enjoy living near each other, to be neighbors, and that we think can really benefit and want to be there. They want to be in Darien.
Right, and then they have to qualify certain applicants. So for argument's sake, you got 40, 50 applications. You have to vet that down to 12. That's not an easy thing.
No, it does not.
So that's your job, right? So you're the one that eventually, selects the initial 12 people?
We have an admissions committee.
Okay.
And that's made up of board certified behavior analysts, a director of clinical services, our case manager, a benefits coordinator. So they look at eligibility financially and to make sure that the person would benefit from living there.
And just for the record, this is what you do for a living. You've been doing it for X number of years.
I've been with Ableist for 25 years. I've been working in the field for 30. Ableist is celebrating 70 years this year of providing services. We're a lifespan provider, and we have a wait list of people who would like to be a part of our community.
That's okay. Okay. Let me go to another item that's specific. I remember when we did this, we had this the IQ test and we had the age test, and the reason why it matters to me, and for full disclosure, I've got 2 special needs nephews. They're not applying to here. I don't think they're eligible. I don't think they want to. They want to live with their mother. But and at 18 and a half numbers, when you come off the state I think you come off with the state financial assistance. But relative to getting rid of that age number, which is the 18 or 18 and a half or 22, and making it nothing, what Bob said earlier was, for argument's sake, say somebody has a brain injury when they're 30 years old and they're recovering, could they apply to this building if we take away that age category?
I would think so.
Right?
Why-
So that-
Yes, absolutely. We would, a person who needs support and is not able to, if you look at the slide that Bob was going over, take care of themselves, function, and they need supports, are not able to be independent.
Okay, so that's a pretty valid reason for taking away that 18 or 22 to make it blank.
And to be honest with you, Connecticut is one of the few states that has this very small IQ definition that defines people and their needs. And you can have somebody with a 75 IQ who is functioning just as somebody who's a 65 IQ. And I think that it allows for more inclusion. And this is our gap in our system. These are the people that do not have services. So this kind of an opportunity doesn't happen quite often. And you have
Okay.
to really, enjoy being together. It's just an amazing community.
One thing that I would add, Steve, is being a parent myself, as I think you know.
I do know, yes.
The parents talk to each other, parents know each other. One of the problems that we have seen is parents who, because either their children with disabilities don't qualify, meaning their IQ is too high, or for whatever reason, they're not in the Department of Developmental Services residential placement system. Those parents get into their 50s, 60s, 70s, and even 80s with their disabled children still living with them,
Right.
which is a tremendous burden. And when old age hits and somebody has a stroke or they have cancer, and we know people who've been in this situation, a heart attack, or one of the parents dies, it leaves that disabled person in a very difficult situation to adjust to.
I hear you 100%. I know of many residents, I know a handful of residents in town that have that situation.
Okay, just wanted to mention that for the record as well, because I
That's
think
perfect. I'm glad you did.
the more
This
people
goes on,
residences like this, the better.
yeah, this goes on to another question relative to this IQ number thing. If we stuck with the existing 18 and a half or whatever the number is, do you get your IQ checked at age like 14 and then you get it checked at page 16? And is it like playing golf? Like one day you hit 9, one day you shoot 90, the next day you shoot 92? Does it change, or is it once you only take the test once?
Does, and
I
it
think
also
in reality,
depends on
I think in
the day.
reality,
If you get enough sleep one day, it could change.
you can test a 68 one day
Yeah.
and a 72 2 weeks later.
Yeah.
And which one is your IQ? Of course, you're going to take the 68 and go to the state with it, but who knows?
Right.
And that's why the practical, the functionality test is
Right.
much better.
So let's say a person that's 40 years old wants to move into the complex 2 years down the road. They apply, they accepted, they've not had an IQ test since they were 16 years old. What do you do with a person like that?
Don't need one. If we make the text amendment, he doesn't need it.
Right, that's what I'm asking. That's a reason to do it, because I I know people that would 40 years old would love to live in the building.
Right.
And if they're not in the system already and they've never had an IQ test, and they have to go get one, and I don't know how that comes out.
So then let's go back to the brain injury thing. If I have a brain injury at age 40 and I've never had an IQ test, you said I could live in the building if I
Good IQ test.
Well,
No,
if you change,
you wouldn't even.
if you change the amendment, you don't need it.
I agreed. No, agreed. Remember when we did this 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we were blazing new trails. We had to start someplace. That's where we started with what we started.
And a lot of these issues have been shaking out as we go along. And Amy's
Right.
been working on all of it.
Directors change up at Hartford and the names change on the other end of the phone, and people you talked to 4 years ago are not the same people that are in the office in Hartford today.
Even,
Okay.
even when they are, they're sometimes they say two different things.
Okay, let's go to the the employee that's going to be there. So right now we have 12 units, 6 in each building. The concept is to make 5 special needs kids, and I apologize if I'm using the wrong acronym, but it's just easier for me. So it's going to be 5 in each building and 1 ableist employee that has a,
Yeah, up to 1. It's going to be dependent on who's in the building. If you get people who need supports, but not 24/7, and they can handle issues as they come up overnight, then we'll have 6 people with the disabilities in there. But if the mix, right, if the mix
Yeah,
of
we want to have the
residents-
option that if it's in the best interest of those that are living there, that we have the option. It's just not, 100% necessary.
It's not mandatory.
Or, right.
so we may have 11 special needs and 1 employee, or you may have 10 special needs and 2 employees.
Correct.
Correct.
We're going to keep it flexible.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, because when I walk through the building, I think there's 3 apartments on the ground floor. I think there's 3 apartments on the second floor. Then there's the TV room on the second floor, right, on both buildings?
Yep.
Okay, that's where I call it the hangout room, where you can sit together and watch TV together.
Yep.
And again, just to reiterate, it's not a mandatory thing. If I want to live there for 1 year, I sign a 1-year lease. If I didn't like it, I can move out,
Move on. Correct.
right? And if I loved it and it's fantastic and my parents think it's fantastic and my kid, then I can renew and keep renewing and keep renewing.
Sure.
So for
Unless,
some reason,
like any other tenant, you're a big pain and you damage the building or you disrupt other tenants constantly, then you're treated like any other tenant in any other apartment. But
Yep.
It's not going to be based on disability, and nobody's going to be forced to move in or out. It's all voluntary.
right, so there's also provisions in the lease if you sign a lease with the tenant and the tenant's quote unquote disruptive. I mean, I've got a house where the tenants are
Like
disruptive.
any other lease.
Just like any other lease. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay.
Any other questions?
I want to pass on for a second, but I just want to make sure we're okay. So in terms of the certification at the end, we're going to kind of do it the same way it's done at Avalon and Garden Homes,
Exactly.
okay? And Ableist is going to submit it because we put in the part of the Darien Housing Human Services person. That woman was better than the affordable housing person, but it's going to get approved by Jeremy. And we don't have that list yet because you don't have a CO yet. You've never applied.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
We'd have value on second audit, so all that.
All right, I think I got most of my questions. I might have another one, but I want to open it up to the other commissioners. If anyone had any questions for the applicant, Mr. Maslin or Mr. or Amy, they're joint applicant, please turn on your light, raise your hand, wave. I can go around the horn if I want to. Kara Gate, you want to go first?
Yeah, I just wanted to thank the applicant, the representative from Ableist, and Bob Maslin, because I did read some of the materials that came in today from the public and from a group in Norwalk that I know advocates for adults and people with disabilities. And their letter was quite compelling, but I did like that you, and I think they'll probably speak tonight, and I'll let their letter and speak for itself. But I appreciate that you spoke as, to the different models and how this proposed amendment increases both inclusivity, flexibility for both ableists and the residents, and is designed to address what's best for the residents. And I think that's really, that was really important for me to hear. And so I want to thank you for your presentation. I thought it was really great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. George Riley, any questions, comments, sir?
I did want to ask, and I'm happy to have Attorney Maslin here, who I know has special knowledge about senior discrimination in housing, as we've learned of late. And I wonder if there isn't some merit to having some upper limit on the age of folks, because folks with early onset dementia sounds like they might well be eligible. And you get somebody 60 years of age or 65, whatever it is, could they stir up a discrimination complaint if you don't consider their application?
Well, we could not set an upper age limit. In other words, you have to be below a certain age. That's prohibited. That's age discrimination. If someone develops dementia, there are other alternatives, I think, that would be better suited for someone with dementia, where you have medical on site and you have people who deal with dementia patients regularly on site all the time. People with dementia, just at some point, they're not ever going to possibly work or live independently, and they would be much better placed in a assisted living or a memory unit or something like that. So I think, as a practical matter, I don't think we'll get applicants like that. If we do, I think Amy's organization and committee would evaluate them for their suitability for the site. And if for their own health and safety, if they have a wandering problem, that's going to be a big red flag, for example. And I know many dementia patients do wander, they get lost, and that's not good for them or anybody else. So I think, to answer your question, we can't put a maximum age on it, and dementia patients would be evaluated just like anybody else.
Yeah, I get what you're saying clearly, but so you could not say that the intellectual disability arose prior to the age of 50. It certainly was statutory that at 22 or 23 or 18 at one time.
You know, it's hard to pigeonhole that type of situation. What if somebody ends up with, you know, they're in a car accident and they have a brain injury or a brain tumor or something at age 60? What do you do? You know?
Yeah, I understand this is not intended for such folks, but I know there are Americans out there.
They may fit.
You know, that's what I'm worried about. Somebody could make a case.
I can tell you one guy that was on my Special Olympics bowling team was 78, was in special needs all his life, thrived, and actually drove a car. And so, you know, you'd be surprised what some people with developmental disabilities are capable of. And, you know, if it's a older age onset, they'll be evaluated.
Well, and I think you discussed the level of need and the level of support that somebody would need to be living here, and that's something that, you know, we have clinicians that are able to look at and make those decisions to ensure somebody's health and safety. But it's not, we're not a memory care. We really want to promote and empower and have people be as independent as possible here.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I guess that goes back to the brain injury thing, where you where I said about the, you know, having to have a day job, basically. I don't think if you're, I get it. Enough said. Are you good, George?
I do get that. Yeah, thanks. I have one other thought for David and DDS, about which I know little or nothing, but are they, they were suggesting that you expand those that would be eligible for these facilities, even though they're a state organization, right, that has a statutory limit, and they're telling you that you should go beyond the statutory definition?
Well, what they said was that they would prefer this housing development to be more inclusive. And they didn't want more than 25% of the residents, the total number of residents in the project, to have an IQ of 70 or below, or to be intellectually disabled. So that's where the 3 units of 12 came from. And, you know, the conversation that we had ended with a comment that if you're able to accomplish this text amendment, we think we can support 3 residents in this project. And I think at an earlier point, they'd actually asked for up to 6 units. But I think they thought it through, and there were a lot of calls to them from different people in the community about the concept and so on. And I think they decided to settle on 3 units as something that they felt good about. That's my understanding. I don't know that they're here tonight. I wish they could have been here, but that's my understanding from the conversation that we had.
And you think if we don't go along with this amendment, they would not support anyone, or they'd support fewer, or what?
I think that's right. If you don't approve this amendment, you know, what will happen is we won't be able to offer this opportunity to people who need support from DDS. So it will end up becoming all private pay, and it will end up becoming all people with an IQ of 70 or below. And, you know, to be candid, Commissioner Riley, my feeling, you know, having started this a while back, but not having a lot of knowledge when I arrived at the table, I've learned a lot. I think that, you know, having gotten closer to ableists and having really got a better understanding of what they do and how they do it. I actually have a friend who's in the ableist program who lives in Greenwich independently and works at Stop and Shop. Her picture was in the thing earlier, you know, Amy Thomas. Yeah. Sorry. But I couldn't do that, sorry. But everybody knows her in Greenwich. But basically, you know, I've gotten comfortable with what they want to do, and I really strongly support the idea of creating this more inclusive community. And that's why I went further and offered to go further to say that we'll take 2 units of the downtown project and further restrict them in the same manner to be managed by ableists. And those will be units for people who want to live in that setting and feel comfortable living in that setting. And who knows, maybe they'll start at East Lane and they'll move downtown after they've transitioned and gotten their legs under them, you know, living outside of their homes with their parents. So I think we're onto something super interesting here, and I'm really passionate about it. I'm very excited about it, and I hope you all share our excitement, especially seeing the job opportunities and the other aspects that ableist has created in Darien.
Good, thanks.
You're all set for now, George?
I am. Yep, thanks.
Jeff Ball, any questions, sir? You're muted, Jeff.
I'm good.
Okay, Jim Rand,
I'm good.
Jennifer, best for last. You're muted, Jen.
I also want to thank the applicant. I thought it was very thoughtful. I appreciate the expansion of the, you know, outside of the technical definition of intellectually disabled. I think there's a huge need for this, and the letters that were sent in by the public were definitely resonated with me. And I think it's a great opportunity for our town to differentiate and provide housing that just really doesn't exist or exists so infrequently. And I have full faith that ableist is an expert and will be able to interview and do intake. The population that they're serving all sort of makes sense to be put together, as anyone in this field has to do so thoughtfully. So I just want to say that. And again, I appreciate the work that was done on this application.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great, thanks, Jen. I do have another question, and this just circle back to the beginning. Relative to the change in these apartments going from, I want to say, you know, 68 to 72 in IQ, and having, instead of having 6 special needs people, and I apologize again if I'm saying it wrong, to having 5 and 1. Is that in any way going to change the traffic patterns, intensive use, or any public safety issues relative to traffic? If someone's going to live there and sleep overnight, then they don't leave at the end of the day. So to me, that's less trips to the building and away from the building.
I'll give you a long answer with a big explanation. No.
Okay.
No, I mean, if anything, we think it's less traffic, given the potential for the 1 employee per unit per building, and the range of IQs that we're talking about the range of disability, we see no difference in the probability that someone's driving versus not.
Parking spots will not be full.
Parking spot, you won't see unless somebody's visiting.
I mean, to give you it's a snapshot in time and things will change. This is dynamic, but of the 12 people that are, or 11 or 12 people who are hoping to live in this place, does any one of them drive?
I think one person has a permit.
So 1 of 11.
Okay.
And one way to think about it, Steve, is if a staff person comes in, parks his car, spends the night, leaves in the morning, having somebody live there overnight is the same.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I don't see any difference in traffic. I just want to make sure we got that in the record, that there's no, we don't need to spend time getting traffic studies and whatnot for a change.
Please.
Okay, and I did read a letter from one I think young girl that wants to move in the building. I think she graduated high school with my daughter, and the parent that wrote the letter said that she does not drive a car, but she has a job at a preschool. You know, I don't know that person personally, but my daughter knows that person. They went to high school together, and I believe the applicant. So, all commissioners, before I open it up to the general public, any other questions that I missed that we need to get on?
It's going to be easier if we just had our folks speak first
That
because
would be
of the
much helpful.
complexity of management.
Steve?
Yep, I'm listening.
Oh, what I'd like to do is have the people who want to speak for this or with us just make their brief comments and then open to the public, just for good order's sake, because they're here and they're in line and they're ready to go.
They're on your team? Okay, Jeremy is keeping the list. Sure, you want to go ahead? So they're quote unquote on your team? Are they submitted letters?
Okay, so first up is Andre D'Annunzio, Denunzio.
Okay.
He's here. Andre, let me just take this. And you got to look at that camera there. And I will.
Welcome, Andre.
Good evening.
Oops.
Yeah.
Okay, here you go.
That's my one.
Okay.
We can hear you perfect, sir.
Good evening to everyone. I submitted my testimony today, but I would like to read it tonight to you at this moment. My name is Andre D'Annunzio, and I am 22 years old. I grew up in Norwalk with my family, with my parents and my brother. I'm currently living in a home supported by the Department of Developmental Services in Norwalk with 2 housemates. I'm asking you tonight to support me and others who will benefit now and in the future for living at East Lane in Darien. East Lane is a beautiful property in the heart of Darien. I have ridden my bike multiple times. It is an easy access for me on the post road. My plan is to work in Darien and to ride my bike to and from work and activities. Ableist will also have a van to take me where I have to go. I am a part of a Boy Scout organization group in Darien. It will be easy for me to get there. I am ready to take this next step into my life and would love the opportunity to live in the apartments on East Lane in Darien. But some people living in a large complex may be the right fit in the choice. For me, this will be my next step towards greater independence. I want to live on East Lane with the friends that I have made. We want to be able to support each other and enjoy living in Darien. Darien is a community that I look forward to getting to know. Everybody deserves equal opportunity to choose where they live. I personally have chosen Darien as my next home and hope that you will support this text amendment to ensure my dream will become a reality. I look forward to everyone joining us at our grand opening celebration. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Anthony. It's very nice.
Andre.
Andre.
Next, I have Mark Grein, Grein. Good evening. I'll be very brief.
I'm here tonight representing my son, who's 27 years old, but has been receiving services on and off from Ableist since birth to 3. Most recently, he's been getting some of the REACH programming in Stanford, and also worked with Ableist as a job coach. Mark enthusiastically supports the change in the language regarding the deed restriction. He's one of the individuals who would not qualify today based on the way it's currently written. Intellectual curiosity and achievement have never been a challenge for Mark. He's earned 2 associate's degrees and a bachelor's degree. He currently works full-time and commutes to work. But he struggles with the other side of it, right? So it's not about intellectual quotient, it's really about adaptive skills. And what that means really is personal hygiene, making a meal, remembering to take his medicines. He goes on and on. It's very common for folks with Mark's profile. He has a diagnosis of the autism spectrum disorder. And it's very common with folks on the autism spectrum disorder to score very well on IQ exams, but not very well on adaptive skills. So as we look at the opportunity to expand the population of participants in the East Lane complex, Mark, obviously enthusiastically endorses the language changes and looks forward to becoming a resident in Darien. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate the comments. Next, Bob.
I have Lisa Manaster, M-A-N-A-S-T-E-R. Just be brief.
Welcome, Lisa.
Say your name and
Thank you. My name is Lisa Manister, and this is my daughter, Emily, who is hoping to be a resident at East Lane. I'd like to touch on the concept of self-determination, which entails people choosing and setting their own goals, being involved in making life decisions, self-advocating, and working to reach those goals. It's about taking action in your life to get the things you want and need. Most of us live self-determined lives. We make choices that bring us joy and are fulfilling, where we live, work, our daily activities, and the friends we choose to socialize with. Individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities have the same right to self-determination as everyone else. They are entitled to opportunities, respectful support, and authority to exert control over their lives, to direct their services, and to act on their own behalf. Unfortunately, though, many individuals with special needs don't always have a lot of friends. Over the last 2 months, Emily has regularly socialized with the other participants. She doesn't want to live with me or her dad. She wants to live with her friends. I should note that Emily does not receive support from the Connecticut Department of Developmental Disabilities. To touch on the IQ conversation, hers is a 77 on a good day. But she has special healthcare needs that preclude her from living independently. And East Lane provides her with the opportunity to live as independently as she possibly can with peers and housemates and a support system that will make her daily living experience as close as possible to all of ours. So please allow her to live a self-determined and meaningful life. Thank you.
Thank you, Emily, and thank you, Lisa.
Thank you.
okay, Cheryl and Louisa Knapp are next, K-N-E-K, I'm sorry. Cheryl is S-H-E-R-Y-O and it's Knapp, K-N-A-P-P. So,
Great. Thank you for your letter, Cheryl or Lisa.
Yeah, and I was going to say that I did submit the letter and I'm not just going to reread it. I just wanted to elaborate a little. I am an inclusionist to the core. My daughter's been included in every facet of her life. We found the one residential summer camp in a 200-mile radius that would accept students with disabilities as part of the program and not some, special program. So, many of the individuals who are objecting to this are my colleagues. And, when my husband and I learned about this opportunity, we had our concerns, but we kept an open mind. And that's something that, we're sort of a breed on ourselves, parents who are, caregivers of individuals with significant disabilities, because we know that every decision we make can change the trajectory of our child's life. So my husband and I did a huge amount of research. We asked lots of questions, and we really determined that this is the right decision for our daughter. It's where she is right now. This is not about every housing opportunity in the state being like this, but this is the step that is the right step for her. And more importantly, Louisa recently took a class on adulting, and one of the things that they taught, which is her mantra now, is nothing about me without me. So more importantly than what I think or my husband thinks or David Genovese thinks is what Louisa thinks. And she almost didn't come in with me because she was sobbing outside. So do you want to just read what you have, honey? Why don't you read? Go.
You can.
Okay, go. You got this.
My name is Louisa. I want to live with friends and get a job. I'm sad government permit. Please let me live there.
It's all she's talked about. She brought a tape measure to go measure her room. We've been doing floor plans online, and she is one of the individuals. This is about real people. And she is one of the individuals who's in jeopardy of losing her assignment, her placement there. So I hope you think about people. And this is more than just zones. This is about, offering options to individuals that meet them where they are right now.
Can I ask Louisa a quick question?
Let's listen.
Right.
Can you tell me about the coffee maker your grandma's gonna buy you?
My grandma's gonna buy me coffee machine.
Yeah, what kind?
Oh,
Remember we picked it out?
we picked it out.
What color is it?
Black
Yeah, black one. We offered her a red one. We
with
thought she was,
almond milk.
yeah, she's gonna put almond milk in it. And actually, the joke is that she asked David, what did you ask Mr. Genovese when he was talking about appliances? Whether it was
Coffee machine.
for a coffee machine. She actually asked him for a coffee machine. Remember this?
He's laughing.
Yeah. So, and I also wanted to say that in preparation for this, Louisa she understands that she's going to be getting up in the morning, making her own breakfast, packing her own lunch. And she has been doing that every single day for the last few weeks.
I eat anyone at cereal.
Yeah, you make your breakfast, you pack your lunch, she makes her lunch, and she has been determined to be successful there. And so I just can't imagine her not being there. So I hope that you will think about Louisa and others, that this is more than just about zoning, this is about people.
Thank you, Louisa. Thank you, Ms. Knapp, for your testimony.
Thank you for your time.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it.
Okay, next up, Mr. Chairman, Fred Podolsky, Podolsky.
Welcome, Fred.
Look up in that camera there.
Hi, good evening. So first of all, let me just thank the commission for giving me the opportunity to speak. I speak on behalf of my wife, Margaret, but more importantly, I want to speak this evening about my son, Matthew. Our family has been here in this great state of Connecticut for the last 32 years. And for years now, we have been looking for something like this. It doesn't exist here in the state. And then fortunately, we ran into Abelus and David, and we found 26 East Lane. And it would be a godsend for my son. And forgive me while I refer to some of my notes, but my son doesn't fit the typical mold. He is developmentally disabled, and he knows that. And he lives with that, and he's proud of it. My son has an IQ of 77, but he works. He goes to the Trumbull Home Depot every day, 5 days a week, and works part-time there for 4 hours a day. And he volunteers at a special needs dog treat manufacturing plant in Fairfield, Connecticut, where we reside and where we've lived for the last 30 years. His executive functioning is in the clinically significant range, which causes lots of issues for him. Ability to regulate behavior, self-manage, maintain flexibility, and keep perspective, most importantly. He has issues with crisis management, medication management, confusion, handling transportation to and from his job, causes lots and lots of anxiety that we typically talk him through. And he has difficulty just in general with life skills and anxieties that come with his special needs. But having said all of that, he needs to not live by himself in an apartment, by a train station, or in some other area of Darien or Fairfield, living by himself in a lonely apartment with no support around would be just absolutely the worst thing for a child like this. He would degrade into spending his nights watching TV, just sitting on his laptop, perseverating and struggling with the day-to-day anxiety issues that a child like this lives with. So I'll close and again, thank you, but 26 East Lane is exactly what children like this, high-functioning individuals, but developmentally disabled, to be sure, absolutely need. Thank you.
Fred, can I ask you a quick question?
Absolutely.
Just about how old is your son, if I'm allowed to ask?
Of course, my son is 27. He'll be 28 in December.
Great. Thank you, sir. Congratulations. Thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, next, Lindsay, Lindsay Benton, Benton.
Do we get a levy?
Look up into that camera.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lindsay Benton, and I do not receive DDS funding. Embarrassingly, I am 45 years old and still live with my parents. And this program would give me the opportunity that I need to experience independent living with some support that I also need. And I'm excited to develop independent living skills as well as, I'm excited to develop independent living skills as well as form relationships with people that I've already met in this program. I just think that this would be a great opportunity for me.
Great. Fantastic, Lindsay. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Is Rob? I got to figure out who's next to your, okay, say your name, look into the camera, and tell me your name first. And
Hi, I'm Sophia.
Hi, Sophia. Welcome.
Thank you. I want to be out of my parents' house, but I'm not 100% fully independent without living support. A couple of my very close friends would be living with me, and in the last few months, I have gotten together many times with several of them. Now I consider them all very close friends. I don't know what to do if I can't move into East Lane. I'm 22 years old and I want to make my own decision where I want to live and who I want to live with.
okay,
Great. Thank you, Sophia.
On the shirt here, Mr. Chairman, it says Yale New Haven Health, Greenwich Hospital, and that's where she works.
Oh, wow. That's a great spot. Thank you, Sophia.
Welcome.
And what was your last name, Sophia?
Mobayed.
I used to get on.
Moubayed.
Thank you.
Mom just wants to say something
And
really quick.
Mom is here to say a couple of things.
Oh, that's Sophia's mom?
Yes.
Welcome.
Robin. Hi, everybody. Thank you all for taking your time to be with us. I just wanted to quickly say, Sophia, for a month, has asked every morning when she wakes up, when am I moving into the house? And I had to explain to her that a problem arose. We spent 2 weeks doing transportation training from her job in Greenwich Hospital, the Darien train station. And then I had to tell her, it's on hold right now. And I just wanted to say, well, I appreciate some townspeople and ARC advocating for my daughter, but luckily her parents and sisters are alive. And we've been with her whole life, and we do know what's best for her. And looking for 3 years for somewhere for her to live, this is the ideal situation. And I do appreciate those people wanting to advocate, but like I said, she does have her family. Her 2 other sisters, who are in their 20s, typical, that live in New York City, they live with who they want to live with and where they want to live. And we just want Sophia to be able to have that same opportunity and choice. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Can I,
Your full name.
Oh, Robin Katz, K-A-T-Z.
great. And can I just ask a quick question?
Yes.
Did you say you get services from ARC?
No. I said I know that ARC has sent letters and is opposed to this because they want to advocate for my daughter. And I know the people in town that are complaining want what's in the best interest for my daughter, so they say. I'm just saying I think it's our family and raising her and going through this journey with her. And luckily we're still alive right now, that we're her best advocates.
Yeah, I think you are too.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, we've completed our presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate that. Do any other commissioners have any questions for the applicant before I turn it over to the general public? Kara's good. Jen, where are you? Where'd Jen go?
I'm
Jen's
here.
okay.
I'm good.
Jeff Ball's okay. You're good, Jen. Riley's okay. And Jim Rand's okay. Jim, you okay?
Yep.
Fantastic. Okay. With that said, is there anybody from the general public that would like to speak to this application? Jeremy, did you have a list that you want to follow?
There is no list, so
Okay.
just everyone just turn your camera on and raise your hand.
So if anyone would like to speak, please turn your camera on, state your name, and I will recognize you, and we'll go from there. Mr. Medwind, Peter Medwind, would you like to speak, sir?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Sure can. Just say your name and address, if you don't mind, for the record.
Sure. Peter Medwid. I'm at 5 Wilson Ridge Road in Darien.
Thanks, sir.
Just wanted to say I'm a father of a special needs son here in Darien that's been through Darien schools. I am an ableist board member for the past year and Darien resident for about 30 years. And I support the proposal. It's just a common sense adjustment on what is otherwise a pretty arbitrary number set on the IQ and age. So I think I'm the only board member that is a Darien resident. So as a ableist member and Darien resident combined, I throw my support behind it.
Great. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
You bet.
Anyone next for that one? There's a call.
Catherine Pierkowski was next.
Catherine, Mrs. Perkowski, I think we got a letter from you. Is there a Mrs. Perkowski here? There it is. I see a thing on.
Yep, that's her.
Do you mind just turning your camera on, ma'am? That would be nice.
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We can now, yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Do you have a camera that works?
I can't, I don't think.
Okay.
I try.
That's all right.
Did that work?
It's black, but it's not muted. That didn't work. That's okay. We received a
I
letter.
do not have it. My camera's not working.
That's okay. We don't need your camera.
Oh, wait, here we go. I got it.
Oh, there you go. Now I see
I
your
got
phone. Welcome.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Welcome. Pardon me?
Yeah, you submitted a letter, I think, for testimony.
Okay.
It's dated October 21st.
My name is Catherine Burkowski and I live at 152 Old Kings Avenue. Yes, I did. Am I not welcome to speak tonight?
No, you're welcome to speak. Go right ahead. The floor is yours.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Am I not welcome to speak tonight?
No, you're
Okay.
more than welcome to speak.
Thank you. I'm a little thank you. I'm a little flabbergasted. And I had prepared a speech for tonight, and I think I'm just gonna have to talk off the top of my head, because our understanding of what was going on with this property is not at all what we thought. So I'm gonna, pardon me? Did. Yeah, I did. So we've been at this for years, my husband and I, and we are, as you know, neighbors of this property. The past few days, I have been going through and looking at all the meeting minutes for 3 years that we spent on this. I'd like to point out first what Mr. Olivini said, which is that the business of this committee is to see whether or not this particular development is within keeping in the town plan of conservation and development. And yet we have gone through many very touching, and for the record, I am a mother, and I am a mother of a child with special needs, and I am very affected by what I heard today. But as a neighbor, I feel as though the blanket has been pulled out from underneath me. When we started this entire process, and I encourage you all to go back and look, it was framed, and no one pushed anyone to frame it. It was framed as an apartment complex, affordable for people with intellectual disabilities. I would call your attention in particular to the meeting on August 28th, 2018. At that time, there were many different discussions, including Amy Montemuro, who talked at that time about thinking outside of the box and outside of what the government funds us to do. And she talked about doing a private pay model. She talked about not just people with intellectual disabilities, but she also talked about people with and DDS funding, but she also talked about people with intellectual disabilities who didn't have DDS funding or whose parents weren't going.
Is anyone else having problems
She
understanding?
also
Sorry.
talked about individuals with developmental disabilities.
Mr. Kowski, can I interrupt for a second? We're not getting a really clear signal here. What we may have to do is call in from a phone line, and that might get you a clearer.
Standing up right next to her,
Try again, Chucky.
right after that,
Or have Fred do it.
was Robert Robert Maslin.
So, hold on, let me.
Saying,
Hold on. Ms. Perkowski, if I can interrupt for a second.
this is how they were going to define this process. That has remained. At
I believe
no
her video is being delayed, so should I just go in and just mute it? Because I believe the message from her is just being delayed at the moment.
In any.
Yes, go ahead and do that, Kristen. Mrs. Pierakowski, can you hear me? We had to mute your audio because your sound is breaking up. What we need you to do, because you have a poor internet connection, is to call in. You can then give your testimony over the phone. I'm going to put the telephone number into the chat box.
Hello, can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. How far into my wife's discussion did you lose her?
It was really breaking up quite a bit from the beginning.
Okay, so
Then we'll
I'm
start
gonna
over.
I'm gonna start again then. Okay, I had a speech that was presented for this evening, which I'm basically gonna toss aside because our understanding of what was going on the property behind us is radically different from what was presented tonight and from what has been presented for years and years in our discussion. So tonight, there have I don't even know what to say.
Okay, let my wife compose herself.
Hold on. Okay. So we were told initially in this process that we were supposed to frame this discussion not on disability, but that your jobs as commissioners were to make sure that this proposed amendment fits in with the plan of conservation and development for Darien. That's how this was supposed to be framed. That's not how this has worked out. This has worked out to be a conversation about disability. And it is absolutely heartbreaking for me as a parent to sit here and listen to the stories of other parents because the procedure and the process in the town of Darien has fallen apart. I want to be very clear. I have gone through and listened to the meetings from all the discussions for the past, the 3 years worth of discussion. I want to be very clear about that. At no point did I hear someone say that they were going to continue to tweak this, that they were going to look at expanding the definition of who could live there. I'm going to call your attention to a meeting on 8/28/2018. Amy Montemuro of Ablis was at this meeting. She was talking about thinking outside the box, about above what government could do. She was talking about private pay. She was talking about people with intellectual disabilities who were not getting support or whose parents had not signed them up for DDS funding. At no point, or actually, she was standing there when Bob Maslin brought up the amendment that defined this place as something for intellectually disabled people. And she, so I want to be very clear to that. If you want to go back and listen to that, I would suggest starting at the 1 hour and 26-minute mark. These things we have been promised as neighbors, and we sat through these very offensive hearings, and we have been promised that this is going to be like a group home, that it is going to be very low impact. We've listened to things that have been so insulting to people with disabilities. And what I'm going to say to you is, this is not low impact on what you promised us. What happened here is that the applicant went and put ads in the paper that indicated this program was open for not for intellectually disabled people, but for people who were developmentally disabled. And they got 50 or 60 applicants, and then they chose who was going to be in this project. That's what happened. This is a bait and switch, plain and simple. There was never any intention to put only people with intellectual disabilities there. So now we have many, many children, we have many, many children like my own who are looking to start a different life. They have already been chosen. They have already met each other. They have already started this life. And this amendment was not passed then. We do not have the answers to our questions. We were never given the platform. That's what happened here. The application of affirmative fair housing and marketing, according to that application, the Declaration of Restrictions and Compliance Plan for East Lane was filled out, and in that declaration, it says that the affirmative fair marketing plan and the eligibility criteria and the notice for availability all needed to be provided within 90 days, I think it says, of occupation. But what I found when I looked at the town code is that that is not the case. So I'm going to direct you to the inclusionary, rather ironically named, inclusionary zoning code. Regulations 586 and 587, which indicate the affirmative fair housing plan and the identification of a nonprofit or property manager shall be provided before a CO is submitted. Furthermore, the zoning regs require that applicants shall be selected by lottery, conducted in accordance with a procedure established in advance of said lottery. I assume that that was done, but now, after listening to this tonight, I'm not so sure. So I am in the position, as a mother of a child with a disability, to stand up and say, you didn't do your job. Your process was wrong. And you're not holding the applicant to the correct process. And because of that, all of these children have their hearts set on this. That is wrong. Furthermore, we've talked about ableists being an expert on disability and choosing people. Well, we don't have their marketing plan, and we don't know if anyone there has an affirmative housing background. Therefore, unintentionally, perhaps, there could be some fair housing issues that could equally break these children's hearts. I'm just shocked and appalled at this process. I am shocked and appalled. What I was going to suggest, and apparently this is not accurate, but what I was going to tell you is that my husband and I went and met with Mr. Genovese and Ms. Montemuro on a Sunday afternoon. We took our dog, we strolled the property, we talked about some of the construction issues we had concerns about, and we talked about ABLES's plan for development. And you know what we decided? I thought that we decided that we were going to agree to disagree on our vision of inclusion and move ahead. Because it was our understanding at that time that all the residents had been selected and they were identified as having intellectual disabilities and they were eager to move in. We did not want to stand in the way of that happening. But we wanted a process around this that makes sense. And there has been no process followed here. Any kind of zoning law should be fair and repeatable. And this is a disaster. I'm beside myself. I was going to suggest that maybe you should just take a moment and make sure that what you are doing in terms of this inclusionary zoning has all the T's crossed and the I's dotted. But apparently, this has been a bait and switch all along. I'm going to allow someone else to speak, or perhaps my husband would also like to speak.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah, your husband, you're more than welcome to speak, sir. Can you?
Oh, no. If somebody else would like to speak before, I'm happy to wait my turn.
That's okay. You have the floor right now. I consider you and your wife as one person.
We are not one person. Are you one person with your wife? No.
That's the way we do it here in P&Z, but you're
okay. Well, I am talking as a mother, and I am talking as a heartbroken person right now. That's what I'm talking at. I'm going to let my husband, who perhaps is more cool about this, be able to express things and our concerns about how this process and procedure was run, hopefully more calmly.
I've taken some notes, and that's why I'd like to start with some clarifications and some comments, okay, based on what was said this evening. When I look at this, okay, and I just want to reiterate something my wife said, but 2 years ago, okay, or 3 years ago, actually, in 2018, okay, it was Mr. Maslin, okay, that represented this as IDD. And when you want to say bait and switch, I will agree with that, okay, because the reason IDD, and the reason my wife and I feel so passionately about this, okay, is because we believe, okay, it was just a play on the heartstrings of people, okay, on helping people with IDD. Okay, we were told, and it was quite offensive, and I would suggest any parent that is going to put a child in this place, go back and look at, they're all online, all of the hearings. Mr. Maslin continued to refer to potential residents as these people. Okay, I found that quite offensive. I also found it quite offensive when the description of their lives was, these people have no friends, these people have no jobs, these people don't go anywhere, they never leave the house unescorted. It was all designed, okay, to convince the commission that this is a very low impact situation. It was continually compared to the cottage, which is a group home, which this is not a group home, and operates completely different. And we were told how no person will leave unescorted, etc. And we were told that we don't need to worry about traffic or sidewalks, okay, and busy corners, okay, on walking to town, because they will not leave unescorted. You didn't need to put up a shed because they didn't need to have a bicycle, okay? But this was the preaching that went on, okay, when we were talked about this and what the low impact would be. So now we're talking about adding people with developmental disabilities, and I agree. I will believe what was said here is potentially only one person has a driver's license. But that doesn't mean, okay, that over the years and over time, it won't end up to be 12 people that have driver's licenses, okay? And I would like to understand from the commission was very clear when they said that 12 seniors would be too much impact, okay? So I'd like to draw the parallel between 12 seniors and potentially, okay, because it is a lottery to select these people, it could be up to 12 people, okay, with just only developmental disabilities that drive. When we look at the definition of developmental disability, it's very broad. I mean, it starts, okay, with very similar situations, okay, for intellectual developmental disability, but it adds in things such as mental illness, drug use and rehab, and things like that. So it gets very broad, and it really opens up the door for a lot of potential, okay, for a lot more intensity on the property. And I think that needs to be explored. I think, okay, there was testimony tonight with regard to DDS, Department of Developmental Services. I think we need to make sure before we change the zoning, so we don't have to go back and change again. We need to make sure in writing, okay, that they would determine this to be an inclusive environment. Personally, I have trouble, okay, thinking how we go from inclusive, from going from intellectual developmental disability to just developmental disability. I think, okay, that's going to open the town up to a little bit of risk in other situations, such as Leroy, when they were asking, okay, to go from age 62 to age 55. Wouldn't that be similarly classified as opening it up and making a more diverse population because we have diversity of age now? So I think this is going to set a precedence, and the commission has to think about what will other developers do, and will they also work incrementally, okay, to start with a low impact and then incrementally get a higher impact to the neighborhood. Ultimately, I think the commission's responsibility is to neighbors and protecting, okay, the neighborhoods. One of the commissioners, okay, referred to something, okay, when they were ableist with selecting resources or selecting candidates as intakes. This is not a medical facility or a treatment center. We're not intaking people. This is 12 units of affordable housing, and it needs to be in the guidelines of how affordable housing works. And I think we should make sure we understand how it should work, okay, before we open ourselves up to lawsuits. Potentially, what ableist has done, okay, in advertising this as developmentally disabled, I'm shocked, okay? I would have believed, we honestly believed, and ableist confirmed to us when we met 2 weeks ago with Mrs. Montemuro and Mr. Genovese, that all the candidates met the requirements, okay, for eligibility. How did they knowingly, okay, not meet the requirements and lead people on to think that this was going to be something for them, and then just blame the neighbors? I find that reprehensible. I think that really brings into, had them knowingly done this, and on top of that, we are now suggesting that maybe they should have more control and more responsibility of verifying and confirming who is eligible. I think the town needs to think twice about that. I think, there also already is, okay, at a minimum, a very sorry miscommunication, okay, that has caused a lot of pain, obviously, for a lot of families. And I speak as one of those families, okay, and no. A little bit aside, if everybody wants to hear a story, coming back to us joining this town, or entering the town of Darien, okay, 15 years ago, okay, was not a very welcoming experience for us either, okay? We moved into this town when my daughter was 3 months old. My daughter has Down syndrome, okay? When we moved into this town, we were invited to a party. And at that party, okay, there was the principal, the then principal of Tokenique, okay, 15 years ago. That principal, when we went up to her and they were introduced and said, this is a prospective student in a few years for you. We were immediately shunned and said, don't get ahead of yourself. She'll probably have other places, okay, for her learning education. That was our introduction to the welcoming of Darien. So we've fought, okay, for the past 9 years for inclusion. Luckily, okay, that principal left before our daughter entered kindergarten, and the principal, okay, that took over believed in full inclusion. And our daughter has thrived in the Darien school system, thanks to all the wonderful teachers and special ed resources, okay, that they have in town for them. So we understand, clearly understand your pain. The other thing is, there was a comment made that 25% of the residents, okay, could have IDD, and the rest of and that would allow DDS to support this. Well, I'm not sure how, and again, it gets back to potential lawsuits. I'm not sure how ABLIS can control that only 25% of the people will have IDD. If it's a fair process of everybody that's eligible, okay, goes through a lottery or some, unbiased process to get it selected to live there. So again, another thing I think we need to think about before we're making a decision. There were a couple of references to ARC. Okay, the ARC of Connecticut, I believe. One was first reference came from one of the commissioners. And I'm not sure if the commissioner realizes it, but that letter, I've read it, okay, that was posted today. That letter, okay, is not endorsing these changes or this complex as inclusive. It is quite honestly saying the complete opposite, okay, and it is saying it is going to advocate, okay, against this, not for this. So, I think also, I know there's been some miscommunications with DDS, okay? And I think that what needs to happen, okay, to make sure is we should get this in writing from DDS, okay, what they think inclusion is and what will they support before we change this. In a general rule, okay, what I'm saying is we need to understand what the impact is on the neighborhood, what the impact could be on the town and the liability to the town, and what are the proper controls, procedures, okay, to make this work and be successful, and where do those lie? But to date, I've spent over 6 months reaching out to the town, trying to find out what are the process and procedures, okay, in place to ensure compliance and a successful development, and I've gotten nothing. And now tonight, I've gotten more deception. So my request is, we need more time. We need to figure this out, okay, before we change anything. Okay, let's walk before we run. So let's start slowly, see what the impact is, and then make the changes that are appropriate, okay, to make this a successful facility. It's built. It's back there, okay? But again, I still feel the town has the obligation to minimize the impact to neighbors.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both, Mr. and Mrs. Perkowski. Are you all set for now?
Yes, all set for now.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to speak to this application?
Oh, I'm sorry, he spoke before I was done speaking.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I would highly encourage you to go back and look at that zoning code. And I would highly encourage you to continue to work with your town attorney on fair housing.
And actually, thank you. There's one more thing. If we're talking about opening this up to employees of ABLIS, our understanding all along and what was presented at all the public hearings was this place would be staffed, okay, for overnight, if not staffed 24/7. We asked a lot of questions about that, and we were shut down on our questioning because viability was not considered an option. We raised this thing as how could ABLIS afford, okay, to provide these services, okay, on a affordable rent. We raised the question, how could families afford to pay for, 24-hour care, even if you're splitting it by 6 families? And what was told to us clearly from one of the commissioners was, that's not the commission's concern. Viability is not one of the commission's concerns. Also, what was told to us, in the previous hearing, was DDS funding is not the commission's concern, because we raised that we believe they needed DDS to make this successful, and we raised that issue, and we were told by the commission, DDS funding is not a criteria for us to approve this in zoning. So, for us to come back now and be pinning this on, DDS would like us to, make this more inclusive. Well, yes, DDS, has sent a letter, saying we'd like this to be more inclusive. They have not defined what they think inclusive is. And who are we going to trust? I think we need to go back to DDS and have them define it. And we also should find out from DDS, how was a mistake made that 3 people were either informally or formally promised, to get DDS funding to live in this development. And then all of a sudden, we realize it's a problem and the funding potentially is revoked. The reason the DDS has a problem is because of Medicaid. And DDS could lose their funding with Medicaid, if they don't adhere to the laws.
So I'm going to build on, just for one more second, I'm going to build on what he said, and I'm going to refer you to the meeting on September 11th. The time mark of 1 hour and 21 minutes. The commissioners, the current commission members are speaking about DDS and how wonderful it is that we're going to be doing more inclusion. The then commissioner at the time stated, based on the history of this, based on the failure and history of this community, based on what I've seen and read, I don't have a lot of faith that DDS would be supportive of anything that goes forward.
And last point, the ableist employees, that are scheduled to live in there, I don't know how you're not going to have an affordable housing issue, if one of them is married, has a partner or wants to, or has a child or gets pregnant. The other thing we're thinking about, we've heard all along how we want to help as many people. Expanding the definition of who can live there isn't helping more people. We're still only capable of helping 12 people because there's 12 people that live there. And in fact, if we change it and we put in ableist staff, we've actually now reduced it by 2 people that we can potentially help with disabilities. It goes from 12 to 10 people potentially. And I know that we're saying, I think it's wonderful that Mr. Genovese is finally considering putting people in the Corbin and fully integrated people, in his development. That's wonderful. And I commend him, for moving forward on that. Even if we count those 2 places, that's not for 2 years down the road. So why don't we revisit this 2 years down the road when that happens? And let's make sure that before we invite an ableist person to live in this unit, that we're not going to set ourselves up for a fair housing issue. Thank you.
Welcome, sir. Thank you for your time. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to speak to this application? If you do, please turn your camera on, your light on, raise your hand, wave, go in the chat box. Seeing none, okay. Just for the record, we did get a number of letters. Jeremy, I think, mentioned them all at the beginning of this. Letters in support, a letter from Mark, and a letter from the Perkowskis. I just want to focus on the intensity of use of traffic and whatnot that comes under our purview. Any commissioners have any questions? I want to ask Bob Maslin to help us out with a couple items relative to the process.
And before we close, I do have one more thing to say. I'm not now, at the end.
That's fine. Public comments not closed. What's that?
Right. Well, how do you want to finish taking public comment?
Yeah, I want to finish taking public comment. I don't see anyone else that wants to speak. But
let Mr. Mikowski go, I guess.
Okay. Well, if I'm the last one, I'm respectfully asking the commission to maintain this open, considering we've been working with the town, trying to get information from the town, which we have not been able to get. The town administrator.
What are you missing?
Excuse me?
What are you missing from the town?
you can talk to Mr. Fox, okay? And we've been trying, okay, and we've been asking for information for 6 months. It's kind of hard to imagine, okay, that nobody knows what we're looking for. So we've been we tried to get an audience with Ms. Bush, with Jamie Stevenson, and we were referred to Wayne Fox. Wayne Fox was supposed to get back to us today. He has not. Okay, so I respectfully request we keep this hearing open until we have all the information we've requested.
This is the Planning Zoning Commission meeting, okay? If you have I did speak to Wayne Fox. If you have a question for me, I'll gladly answer it if I know the answer.
What is the town's process? What is the town's current process for confirming, okay, a person with intellectual disability?
Okay,
Mute microphone, Steve.
Okay.
I'm happy to answer that if you like.
Hold on, David. Hold on, David.
No. Is Mr. Genevieve speaking for the town now?
No, he's not. I'm speaking
Okay.
for
All right, I should check it. Sorry.
For the Planning Zoning Commission.
Yeah,
Okay.
we can't see. We can only hear you. We can't see you.
Okay, that's fine. So that's the process of confirming, was that what it was?
Yeah, if you mute.
Oh, well, just let me, is there another question beyond that one, sir?
I have more. I don't have them all with me because we're a little bit jumbled right now. We had to change locations to continue this call.
But in your letter that you submitted, in the letter that you submitted, there was really no questions in it.
That's correct, because we've already been working with the town and we haven't received them back. Okay, we didn't feel that this was the time to receive back questions from the town. Okay, but what we can tell the commission is we've been working with the town to answer questions on what this development, how it works, what are the policies and procedures around it, and the town has not been able to provide us a single answer. And the town finally just put us in touch, okay, and with somebody else, and we're waiting for a response. Okay, we were promised a response today before the meeting started, and it didn't come. So I think, and I think there's been a lot of information presented tonight that I think both the commission, okay, as well as myself, need to continue to research to make sure we understand before we can move forward and have a meaningful discussion.
Okay, that's your opinion. I'm going to allow Jeremy to answer any questions you may have. Go ahead, Jeremy. Oh, let me mute mine.
We're not hearing Jeremy.
Yeah, I can't hear Jeremy either.
Nope. You got a green light, but no sound.
Mine's on, Jeremy.
There.
This is.
Mine's on.
With an echo.
This is Jeremy Ginsburg, Planning and Zoning Director, Town of Darien. I've spoken on and off with Mr. Perkowski over the past few months. Mr. Perkowski's general questions have been related to I'll call it the issuance of a certificate of occupancy relative to the buildings which are now under construction, and how will the town, I'll call it, and Mr. Perkowski has called my attention to the zoning regulations in section 5. I don't have the section in front of me, but relative to verifying, if you will, or certifying the folks that are moving in. I've explained to Mr. Perkowski numerous times that we are waiting for information from Mr. Genovese and/or Ablis. We have spoken with them, but we have not received anything with regard to the potential tenants who would seek to move in. So while we may have heard of people or heard of representations, the town has received nothing in writing at this point from either Mr. Genovese or Ablis regarding the proposed tenants.
So we're not required to.
And that was, Mr. Pierkowski had other questions related to the issuance of the certificates of occupancy and what as-built surveys may be required. And I referred him to the written approval of the site plan and special permit by the Planning and Zoning Commission, which would outline any requirements that need to be met by Baywater Properties for this project.
Jeremy, what was asked for, okay, was what is it the town requires to be submitted? It is clear to us, okay, that nothing has been submitted to the town. The town should know what paperwork needs to come in, when it needs to come in, okay, and how the town, okay, validates that paperwork.
Okay, Steve,
I think what your answer to me today was, Jeremy, when we were speaking is it's in your head, it's not written down.
Could I respond to that?
Hold on one second, Jerry. Okay. Okay.
If I could just respond.
Mr. Genovese or Mr. Mazin, can you try to give a little bit of light on this? We're just trying to.
I'm happy to respond to this. Mr. Pierkowski had asked the question, I think, of many people in town. I know he had been calling Ali Ramstek in the Human Services Department, and he had. I'm going to come over to Bob's computer. He'd also been asking Jeremy Ginsburg what the application process was, who it is. We have recorded on the land records the marketing plan and the affordability restrictions based upon the approval that is in place today. We met with Ali Ramstek and Jeremy Ginsburg probably 60 days ago to talk about these modifications because Ali Ramstek, and I think I could say this, Jeremy, please correct me if you disagree, wasn't comfortable based on her experience, affirming that people were qualified or met the definition of who could live in the place. And so the burden of the certification was put onto Abel as the qualified manager of the housing. And the plan is that once we know who can live here based upon this application for a modification to the text amendment, the system will be that Ableist will present applicants with a certification that they meet the criteria based on their expertise in this field, which Ali Ramstek doesn't have. It's not different, as I think someone commented earlier, it's not different than the way in which an affordable housing property owner has to affirm that people meet the income limits. I think the candid answer here is that Mr. Pierkowski isn't getting an answer that he wants, and so he just continues to say that he's not getting an answer, and that is factually incorrect.
Mr. Genovese, with all due respect, I disagree with you. Okay, yes. So I wholeheartedly disagree, and I think the commission has a responsibility.
Sir, you have to direct your questions to the chairman.
Yes.
We're not having conversations among people.
So, Mr. Chairman, I respectfully disagree with Mr. Genovese's assessment. I'm shocked, okay, that Mr. Genovese, the developer, is answering these questions rather than the town, okay? It's just not making sense to me. And yes, I have called Ali, and I'm aware, okay, that, you know, if Ali gave me a call back. So, I mean, and I was instructed by Mr. Genovese to please stop calling the town. So I don't know if, I don't know what's going on. But all I know is I need to get answers. The one thing I will say, Mr. Genovese referred to the marketing plan in their declaration. What's submitted in the declaration does not qualify as a marketing plan, according to the Department of Housing of Connecticut.
Okay, I've been the chairman of the planning.
So I'm not sure that we should be using Mr. Genovese as the expert of what needs to be submitted either.
Okay, I'm the chairman of the Planning Zoning Commission. I have been for 2 years, and the director sits right across from me. So if you have any questions, please direct them to me. I'll give you my personal phone number and my work phone if you want to.
I'll be happy to call you tomorrow. If you can email me.
I've never spoken to you ever since this thing came up since 2016.
Well, nobody ever gave me the option to speak to you. I raised it to Kate Bush because Jeremy reports into Kate, and Kate never said you need to call Mr. Olvany. So again,
everybody else in the town
not for lack of trying, Mr. Olvany. I'm happy to speak to anybody that will, provide us an answer.
Everybody else in town calls me.
You can't call you during an ongoing hearing.
Exactly, yeah, you can't call me during a hearing process, you can come before or after, but anyway. Okay, applicant, Jim Rand, Jim, you have your question, sir?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I'd like to raise, I guess, what the lawyers, with all due respect, would call a point of order. I sat through all the hearings on this matter. And I was satisfied at the time that the procedures needed and the issues addressed in the application were appropriate and satisfied the requirements of the not only the Planning and Zoning Commission, but the town of Darien. The things that I do not recall, the issues raised over the past 45 minutes, whatever it's been, as being an accurate summary of the discussions held on the several meetings where the commission considered this matter and parenthetically approved it. I don't believe on the, based on my understanding of the changes being asked for or being proposed, represent a material change in the change in our original approval sufficiently material to, in effect, putting this whole application on ice so that it can be reconsidered when the facts are not going to change. I would propose as a point of order that we, the commission, move on and proceed with the business of considering and eventually approving this application.
Great,
That's
thank
all
you,
I got
Jim.
to say.
Great, thank you, Jim. Any other commission? I just want to read a couple of items into the record that's in the existing code. But anybody else have anything to add at this point before I do that? And then I think we're going to look to close this unless the applicant has anything else to do. Okay. Okay. In the existing zoning code under 454B as in boy, it says prior to the certificate of occupancy, the C of O, a restrictive covenant or declaration identifying the current owners of each dwelling unit and describing the restrictions must be recorded in the Darien land records. Was that done?
Yes.
Okay, that was done. The deed restriction or declaration must be approved by the planning zoning staff, town council prior to being recorded in the land records. We already did that, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's done. Then the next item is, which is 454, and the C of O has not been applied for and has not been issued. So the second half of that sentence is already done. The next item, which is 454, D as in dog, is the property owner shall be responsible for certifying the eligibility of the occupants and relaying that information to the town. We've not certified them because we don't know who the occupants are.
We haven't received anything in writing from either Mr. Genovese or from Nicholas.
Correct. So we don't have that yet, so we can't certify anything because they haven't certified, we haven't received it. Okay.
Correct.
The Town of Darien Department of Human Services confirmed the eligibility for the occupants with section 1-1G of the Connecticut State Statutes with respect to whether the person has intellectual disability. That is, what's the woman's name? Penny?
Ally Ramstick.
Ally Ramstick. So she hasn't received that either
That's correct.
because we don't have it.
That's
Okay,
correct.
so we don't have it. The planning and zoning department staff shall confirm the eligibility with respect to income, certificate of income, which is the amount of money these guys make, which is the same exact thing you do for affordable housing.
Yes.
Okay, Ally Ramstack contacted me this summer and said, if I do, I'll do this, you know, if I need help, I need help. But it's at the end of the day, it's the applicant's responsibility to certify the eligibility, and then the town just reviews it and relays that information to town, right? So you can't do that until it's given to you and it has been given to you.
That's correct.
Okay, great. So commissioners, if you understand that, there's nothing that the town can do that the town hasn't have the ability to do because we don't have the information yet. And they also have never applied for a C of O. And they haven't applied for a C of O. And until they do, they don't have to put the stuff in. Until you shall be a person. And the other part above that is just such persons in special needs affordable restrictions 554A1. It says such persons have intellectual disabilities as defined by section 1-1G of the Connecticut State Statute. Mr. Maslin, that's my understanding is that's the sentence that you want to change with this application. Is that correct?
Yes, that's one of the sentences. Yes.
Great. Okay, got it. Commissioners, everyone understand what I just read? Yes. Okay. Relative to traffic and housing, we have testimony from the applicant that if they switch one of these units from a intellectually disabled, what I keep calling special needs, and I apologize if I'm using the wrong word, to a resident, to a employee of there for a certain point in time, then that's not going to change any traffic. It's not going to change any parking. It's not going to change the intensity of use. We had traffic studies that do that. So relative to the application, you know, I don't know what much more we can go over than that. I don't think any commissioner has any questions. Mr. Maslin, you know, is there anything else you want to answer or ask before we close this thing?
If I can, just very briefly, rest assured, this will not become a drug rehab facility. That's beyond anything ableists would do. They don't provide that service. This is a text amendment application. The site plan and special permit that was approved previously and the follow-up compliance with that is not before the commission right now. And all that's before you is this text amendment. We've given the reasons for it. And we think we have a solid application. As you all know, on the commission, property owners are entitled to make applications to revise regulations and to revise revisions to applications. That happens, and I think you know that. We did it in a number of applications, so I would say over the last 10 years. So there's nothing new about that. There's a case called Kaufman that says you can't condition one approval on a prohibition on future applications for the same property. So again, you've heard from Ablis, you've heard from David, you've heard what's happened over the last couple of years in terms of the people and the segment of the disabled population that have applied for this housing. This change is perfectly appropriate. We ask you to close the hearing tonight. There's really no need to keep it open. And we also ask you to approve it as soon as you can get to it so that we can move forward. And I thank everyone for their time.
Thank you, Mr. Maslin. George Riley, your light is on. Did you want to say anything? Are you good?
I'm just noodling the whole thing. This nuance between intellectual developmental disabilities and developmental disabilities is new to me. I wasn't thinking about that coming into this hearing tonight. And it's apparently a nuance that is very significant to folks and consider it an issue of inclusion and exclusion somehow. So I'm just trying to figure that out in my mind. I did have one specific question I wanted to ask. there might be staff living there if there are folks with developmental disabilities. And I didn't participate in the original approval, so forgive me my ignorance, but why wouldn't there be staff living there for folks with intellectual disabilities?
Well, either way, for sure. In fact, intellectual disability is included within the definition of developmental disability. Whether you have a staff person overnight or a resident overnight makes no difference in terms of the intensity of use.
Right. So that's already contemplated by the permit? There may be staff staying overnight?
Well, we're asking for that amendment.
But
well, first of all, yes, there will be staff overnight one way or the other. If
one way or the other, okay. If we make no change, there may be staff overnight.
Maybe one per building, but no more than that, and possibly one for the two buildings, possibly none.
So what are we saying?
There's a difference between staff being awake and staff being asleep.
Sure.
Today.
And you can have people living in one of these buildings who really don't need a full-time overnight wide awake staff. And the level of need we're talking about here, that's entirely possible. And in those situations, I can see a staff person living in one of the units rather than having somebody overnight as to be available as needed, rather than having a staff person basically staying awake all night.
Well, the real issue is, are you going to dedicate an apartment to a staff person under either scenario?
No, it wouldn't necessarily be dedicated. It's optional. It's optional for it depends on the needs of the residents of the building.
Right now, today, George, just for in real life, there is a staff room. It's got a TV in it. It's got a bathroom in it. It's got space for a couch and a desk.
I see. Okay, wasn't aware of that.
So if I worked for Ableist, I could sit in that room all night long and watch TV 79 until I was blue in the face.
I don't know how many zoning commission hearings I could take, but theoretically, yes.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Or else I could take an apartment and live there and go to sleep.
Right.
Okay.
That's really the only difference, and that person's going to be there available in case something happens. That's all.
And that is detailed in the narrative that was submitted by the applicant.
Yes.
All right. So is there the prospect of having both that staff using that staff room and somebody residing in a unit as a staffer?
Yes. No. Well, possibly. But, the reason you put a staff person in one of the units, you didn't have an overnight staff person. That's really primarily why we would do it. But we're just suggesting that we have an opportunity or an option of having somebody in one of the units who meets the affordability requirement and also is available as if they're a staff person.
All right. Well, so my concern is we're cutting down the number of residents from 12 to 10 under your proposal.
Still 12 residents and still 12 affordable units. Plus now you have
well, 12 residents for services. I mean, 10 residents would be receiving services.
Correct. But we're also adding the 2 downtown.
Yes, and that's to be applauded.
And they would probably be, frankly, they'd probably be higher functioning people with special needs that wouldn't need somebody nearby overnight.
Okay, thanks. More than my share of time. Thank you.
Great, thank you. All righty. Anybody else have any more questions to add? Mary Gately? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, super quick. Thanks again, Bob, for a really great, thorough presentation. And I thank the Pierkowskis for such, thorough and passionate, comments during the public hearing. I think my question comes from what Commissioner Riley just brought up, which was the issue of staff who meet the income requirements residing in the 26 East property, and then the addition then of the additional units in the main downtown Corbin development. And this may be like sort of a question out of turn, or maybe like, you know, over my pay grade, but did the discussion around, or the sort of need or desire or decision to sort of think about adding the income level staffers come from the conversations with the DDS in terms of them and a desire to increase inclusivity, even though the Connecticut state regs say one thing and they have sort of a voice in that. But, you know, it's interesting how they're pushing that on developers and towns. So I'm just curious about that.
I'm
Want
not
to
sure.
try to answer that, Bob?
Can you unpack that a little bit? I think you did the request for the affordable, one of the units being occupied by a staff person who meets the affordability requirement.
Is it flexibility?
Is that at the request of DDS? Is that?
Or is it just flexibility that you guys need because it may suit the mix of residents and, you know, what ableist as the manager thinks is most appropriate, and give them flexibility in terms of, we don't want them living too far. We don't, it's not, you know, being overnight. The staffing is easier if they live there. I mean, I'm just trying to get an understanding about that.
Commissioner Gailey, if I could answer that question. So I'm David Genovese. I would say that honestly, the two issues, the 2 units downtown that we decided to dedicate, and the issue of, you know, asking for the option to have 1 staff member live in each of the buildings, they were kind of come to separately and differently.
Okay.
We came to the idea of dedicating or further restricting the 2 units downtown and putting them into the control of ableists. To be candid, like after the 2 or 3 years that we've been working with ableists, and getting confident in their, you know, program and kind of what they do, we are not, you know, suited to kind of manage those situations. And having gotten to know ableists more, we got confident with it. And as, you know, odd as this may sound, given the fact that I've been accused of baiting and switching the commission tonight by Mr. Pierkowski. In fact, I was sort of inspired by Mr. Pierkowski and Mrs. Pierkowski and their desire for us to put these units downtown. And having had, you know, a year or 2 to kind of think about it, having gotten to know ableists better, you know, I came to the conclusion that it would be a good idea to put 2 of the units downtown to kind of do something better in the context of the project that we're undertaking. So that really was separate, and that conversation between me and ableists began probably a year ago. Okay. The idea of, you know, having a staff member, giving a staff member the opportunity to live in each building, honestly, as we've sort of said repeatedly tonight, this is an iterative process. We came up with a big picture idea 4 years ago. We hadn't had any experience in the realm. We've been learning a lot, talking a lot, both we and ableists. And, you know, they concluded that it could be good for the model, the operational model, to have the option. I mean, deep down, they really want to have the maximum number of people in need of this housing living in the housing. So that's why it's set up as an option, not as a requirement. And really, that's the answer to your question.
Thank you. That is really, really, really helpful. And I think, you know, I appreciate the insight that, this is an iterative process, and what you knew 1 year ago, 2 years ago, this is breaking new ground. And what you think, you know, on paper and going into things, reading regs, and then as you start learning and working with people who are in this field and working with ableists and DDS and different, and then speaking with parents and potential residents, views, your initial view when it's paper-based and academic becomes very different. So I appreciate that honesty, you know, not honest, you know, that sort of
window. I'm giving you a window into what happened. And that's where we just fundamentally believe that, like, the difference between people with an IQ of 65, 68, 72, 78 living in this complex, there's no change in the spirit of what we're trying to accomplish, or no change in the intensity of activity that will occur there based on this request.
Yeah, I think the intensity, addressing intensity is really important because I think that is a key concern and a key factor, right, that the commission has to discuss and consider. And it's also something that we owe the neighbors, right? Like that is a legitimate, completely a fair thing, and something that we owe the neighbors. And I appreciate, right, the just disclosure that, like, as we learn, this is an iterative process and we learn as we come to things. And I think having real people speak about the difference between intellectual disabilities and, which is a very strict black letter definition and it's statutory, and you're 1 degree below it and then you're like out of luck, and that's not really in the spirit of inclusivity, and that's, to me, like form over substance and missing the spirit of what I think the law and I think these things are trying to get at. And so I think inclusivity and flexibility and, right, if changing something to allow for something but not necessarily dictating it, because obviously the goal of ableists and you guys, and I think the town, is to have as many of the residents that we're trying to serve here there, but they also may need support. And if it makes more sense to have them in the residence as opposed to commuting in, the flexibility, if you're managing and running a place, you like flexibility. And then after you have the flexibility, then you want consistency, but at first you want flexibility. So I really appreciate this. And I think this was a really helpful presentation. And like I said, I appreciate the neighbors, and I know I was getting a little teary myself. So I understand this is a very emotional issue, and it hits a lot of nerves, but it's important. And I appreciate everyone's time and the thoroughness and thoughtfulness of everyone's presentations and thoughts and comments.
Great, thanks, Kara. Okay, with that said, any other last call for the general public? We're good? Mr. Mazin, anything else to add?
No, I don't. Thank you very much for your consideration of this application.
Thank you. With that said, I'd enter a motion to close. Jim Rand makes the motion. Jeff Ball makes the second. And Jennifer makes the third. All those in favor? Unanimous. Hearing's closed. Great. Thank you.
Commission will deliberate on a date in a week or 2 or 3. It'll be on the agenda if they deliberate. When they deliberate.
Great. The hearing's closed. Great.
Hearing's closed.
Okay. Next item on the agenda. It's now 10:15. Coastal site plan review number 362, floodstone prevention application number 415, land filling and regrading application number 515, 51 FMR LLC, 91 5 Mile River Road. Proposal to construct a replacement single-family residence and pool with associated storm water management and to perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 0.68 plus minus acres subject property is located on the east side of 5 Mile River Road, approximately 900 feet north of its intersection with Davis Lane, and it's shown on Assessor's map number 66 as lot 20 in the R1 zone. We just approved the house next door to this, didn't we?
We did. A few months ago, the commission approved a replacement house at number 89 5 Mile River, which is the house, I'll call it behind this house, waterward of this property. This is 91 5 Mile River Road, and they're basically looking to do the same thing, construct a new single-family residence with pool and patio in the backyard. The property has a little itty-bitty piece of frontage on the 5 Mile River. We include in your P&D packets the EPC approval dated September 14th, 2021. Which was approved by the EPC. We did refer this out to the state of Connecticut DEP. We did not receive any comments back on that. Andy Sumulidis from Land Tech is here to talk a little bit about the proposal. Some of the work is in the flood zone. There's a little bit of regrading associated with it. And as I mentioned, much of the property is within 100 feet of mean high water. Andy, why don't you take it away from here?
Andy, welcome. Sorry you had to wait so long.
No worries. Good evening. For the record, Andy Sumulidis, professional engineer and partner with Land Tech out of Westport. Also on the call this evening is Mark Goodwin, who is the architect of record from Binefield Architects. But I'll try and be brief. I know it's already been a pretty long night, so I'll try and run through this pretty quickly.
Thank you, sir.
So here you see the existing conditions of the site. Just to orient yourself, the property sits on the east side of the 5 Mile River Road, I should say. To the north, east, and south are residential properties. And then that little bit of corner that Jeremy was referring to is about 3 linear feet of frontage actually along the 5 Mile River. This is 89 5 Mile River, the property that you guys recently approved under a CAM application also. The property is currently serviced by city sewer and water. There's currently no stormwater facilities on the property. The CAM zone is this dashed line here, which is 100 feet from mean high water there in the coastal resources. The only real coastal resources on this property are the flood zones that Jeremy alluded to earlier. This flood zone line here, everything left of this line is zone X, so out of the flood zone. Between this line and this line is your flood zone AE elevation 13, and then south of that line is your VE zone. The other coastal resources are really waterward of that seawall. There are some tidal wetlands. The proposal is to demolish the existing single-family residence and detached garage and improve the lot with a new single-family residence, patios, and pools, maintaining similar curb cut off of 5 Mile River Road. The property will continue to be serviced by sewer and water. Here again, just in relation to the 100-foot CAM, a portion of the existing house was in the 100-foot CAM. A portion of the proposed house will be in that as well, but predominantly the patio and pool on the south of the property are within that area. In terms of other improvements for the property, what we're really looking to do is keep the house and maintain that house outside the flood zone. It will remain in zone X. The house and property will be improved with stormwater quality. As you guys are aware, when you abut the coast, it's not really detention that you're looking to get, it's really the water quality measures. So this stormwater underground detention system provides first flush or 1 inch of treatment off of new impervious surfaces. The areas of pool and patio that run off to the southeast, we have enhanced that little corner of tidal wetlands that are, on the downside of that seawall with a vegetated buffer. It will be planted with salt-tolerant grasses to provide some more water quality for runoff off the pool and patio. The overflows from the Coltec system under the large storm events will flow southeast and flow back into the 5 Mile River. That in a nutshell is our proposal. I'll be more than happy to take any questions, and Mark's also here if you really want to see the beautiful building he designed.
Go ahead, Jeremy's gonna have a couple questions for you, Andy.
Andy, I forgot, when Fred and I went out to the site earlier today, we came back with a few questions. Pool equipment, and then a little piece of retaining wall that should be shown on the plan. Can you run through those items for us?
So the house sits at elevation 16.5, a step out onto the patio and pool area here, which is all elevated. So this, you'll see the grades here are 13. It's not really depicted well here. There should probably be another line offset that would show a retaining wall along this edge. So the grade here basically remains the same along the south side of this pool. And then the new pool and patio get retained along the south and east edge of it with a staircase that gets you back down to grade. This area in here, where the house gets demolished, this will all be lawn area, and then it just slopes down to the east and south. So there will be a wall along that south edge of pool and patio. It would be like an infinity edge type pool sticking out of the ground.
So that's a 3-foot wall, Andy?
The wall here would be 3 feet at the patio near the house. And then down here, you're looking at about a 5.5 foot wall at this corner.
That's legit. That's fine.
And Andy, we talked about the pool equipment, just finding a location that complies with the setbacks.
Yeah, so a couple of things that we'll clean up prior to zoning permit or before we submit for foundation is the pool equipment and outdoor kitchen. They are a little bit over the setback here, so we'll clean those plans up before we submit for foundation permits. And I think the other thing that we mentioned too was certification of the flood zone in terms of the improvements of the pool and patio. That this portion of the 5 Mile River is tidally influenced. It's not riverine, so any regrading and filling here will not have any impacts to neighboring properties or rise in the 5 Mile River.
Couple other quick questions. That garage is a portion of the garage that's inside the flood zone. Does that gonna have flood vents on it, or yeah,
None of the houses in the flood zone. It's a portion that sits in the CAM zone.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
You're right. And then we're gonna have a flood elevation certificate too as part of the survey.
Yeah, I think we would need, on this one, Andy, we might need an as-built survey, because what we would want to do is ascertain that the final product, when all the grading's done, that the house is still outside the flood zone.
Sure.
Then you need that elevation survey, right?
We might need an elevation certificate. We'll have to look a little closer at that question, because if the house is entirely out of the flood zone, the reason they came to us for the flood permit is the pool and patio and a little of the regradings in the flood zone, but the house is not.
Right, which FEMA typically doesn't insure anyway. So the FEMA won't insure your pool and patio. They will only insure your house. So an elevation certificate probably isn't needed, but you could probably do a certificate or something of a flood zone for that.
Okay. Then real quick, just can we go over the house in a couple minutes, like number of bedrooms, bathrooms, and square footage of the house?
Sure. I'll let Mark, you want to take over and go through the house quickly?
It says 11,000 feet. Clean the patio, mechanicals. That's all. We usually ask those questions. Mark, you're muted, man. There you go. You're on.
Good evening, everyone. Mark Goodwin from Finefield Architecture. So yeah, the building is 7,500 square feet. The 11,000 square feet is including attic and basement square footage allowed by the regs. That's the 50% of the basement and the proportion of the attic that's allowed per the regulations. The house has 5 bedrooms, and we really were trying to position the house so that kind of nestled in on the site. I don't know if you've got a chance to look at the plans, but we broke the house up into several volumes to kind of help take some of that square footage out. So it's actually 3 separate pieces by smaller, sort of lower roof connectors in between to sort of help bring the scale down.
Yep. Now, relative to the basement, it's a full basement, right, with a playroom? That's not a crawl space?
No, it is full basement. That's correct. Underneath the main T shape of the house, and then not under the garage, of course, or the little covered patio area. The area that's within that the regulated area line is actually open. That's an open structure. And if you could just, you mind scrolling to the floor plan?
Yeah, we're good. All right, we're good, Andy. I mean, we're good, Mark.
Okay, terrific.
All right, I'm going to open up to commissioners. Commissioner, any questions on this application? Jim Rand, your lights on? You good?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay. George Riley's in the middle. Good. Jen, you good? And Kara, good. Jeff Ball, fantastic. I like Jeff Ball's background. All right, we're good. Anybody in the general public like to speak to this application?
Yeah, I'd like to.
Go ahead. Say your name and address, please, for the record, sir.
Yeah, my name's Doug Cruikshank. I'm at 87 5 Mile River Road. I'm north of him, next door.
Okay, great. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I got just a couple questions. One, the buffer, vegetation buffer, that's my view straight down the river. How high is the buffer going to be?
This is that 3-foot area. That's the area that's in the corner.
On the corner there, they showed like a not a triangle, but a circle, half
Planted-
circle.
Yeah,
Sure.
planted area with northern bayberry, 3.5 feet on center. Go ahead, Andy.
Sure. Just pulling up the plan so I could just point to it. Yes, it's just this little area here. You're talking about some
Seagrass.
3-foot high shrubs, max. So yeah, standing up, you could see right over them.
Yeah,
See
I'm
right
sitting-
over this corner. It's not going to be high.
I'm sitting on my porch on the other side, and that's the view. So that's one concern I have. And the other
Sure.
concern I have is what's the height of the house? It looks like the barn section with a big window. It looks like a barn to me with a big window. What's the height on that? Is that lower than the house that exists today?
Where is
Let
the
me
house?
see if we have a height of the existing house.
Where's the maximum building height? It's
It's in compliance with the regulations, and I'm getting to it right now.
Hey, why don't you do me for on your plan, Andy? It says maximum building height stories, the existing proposed. Usually we have the it says 2.5 stories. Usually they add the number of feet. On your plan, on your zoning box, you don't have the number of feet on that.
It's probably on Mark's elevation. I'll pull it over.
Yeah, it's 29'9" is what we have on, that's on our, which is in compliance with the regs. As far as the existing house, I know that has that, we're definitely lower than the ridge goes pretty high on the existing house, the steep.
Yes, it does.
That's pretty high. Not
I
so
got-
good.
Who's that? Mark Goodwin, on your plan, I have it, is it, am I reading this right? 28 feet, 10 inches, 28 feet, 10 and 7/8 inches?
29.
It's 29. That's to the, we wanted to indicate that the stair, the section that has the stair and the separate roof is also in compliance. So there's two midpoints indicated, but the highest is 29.9.
Okay.
Now, one thing I want to mention, Andy and Mark, is if the zoning chart that you put on says the coverage will be 19.9%. So it might make sense in this case to do, as you start approaching 20%, which is the absolute max, you've left yourself about a handful of square feet, probably as much as this sheet of paper in terms of building coverage.
You got pool equipment still to mess around with.
See, what we'll have to do is get an as-built on that house foundation, the house, and you might have to do the pool very last. And if you're over on that, you might have to reduce the size of the pool. I mean, you guys, you're pushing the limits, you know.
Understood.
So you make them get a survey
Yeah,
once the
you know,
foundation's in?
I will say this is a new staff policy. We're really, really uncomfortable with people getting up to 19.9% building coverage. Because if you have an eave or a gutter or a generator that puts you over, and we can't issue a CO for the house.
Is there a generator? Is there a generator pad on this thing now?
Yeah.
There's a generator, yes, yep.
Yeah, I don't think Mr. Goodwin wants me to tell his client that he can't move in the house because he's over on coverage.
And I did, I'll type ZBA, they're not giving any
They're not gonna
variance.
give a variance.
You'll get nothing.
Yeah, agreed.
No, we understand.
We understand.
All right. Commissioners, any questions on this one? And there was the gentleman for, sir, Mr. Koschek, did we answer your question, sir?
Yes, you did. The only other question I had was, I'm confused on the square feet. All of a sudden, it's 11,000 square feet, then it's 3,500 square feet. It includes the attic and the cellar. What's the square footage of the livable house, not including the attic and the cellar?
On the plans, the living space of the house is 7,543 square feet. The basement is 2,790, and the attic, which is a 5-foot 6-inch wall, is 1,055. Those four numbers, three numbers add up to 11,388.
Okay, thank you. It's very similar to mine. Okay, I appreciate the answers.
No sweat, man, anytime. Okay, that's all the commission, that's all the public. Anybody else in public? Everyone good? Okay, commissioners are good. Anything before we close, Andy?
No, I think we're good. Thank you all for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Don't go over the height and don't go over the percentage or else you.
Yeah.
With that said, entertain a motion to close. Jen, Kara Gately makes the motion. Jen Leahy, you make the second. George Riley made the second. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Great. Hearing's closed. Thank you, gentlemen. Next item up for bid. Coastal site plan review number 363, that flood damage prevention application number 169A is an apple, land filling and regrading application number 55A, John Dayleader at 32 Plymouth Road. Proposal to construct elevated terrace areas, a swimming pool, spa, and pool house directly adjacent to the rear of the existing residence with associated stormwater management and perform related site development activities within regulated areas. The 1.01 plus minus acre subject property is located on the west side of Plymouth Road, approximately 400 feet north of its intersection with Shipwright Road. It's shown on Assessor's map number 57 as lot 36 in the R1 zone. This thing is down in the bay, near the Darien Boat Club. Today by email, we got another shot of the second floor plan of the house, of the shed,
Pool house.
of the pool house that they're building. Who do we got, Jeremy? What do we got?
Yep, this is a property served by public water and sewer. It's on the, it's part of the road bay. It's on the Shipway Road, or Plymouth Road, north of Shipway. And in this case, the backyard is in the flood zone, elevation 13. The applicant proposes a pool house, spa, and elevated patio in the backyard directly behind the existing residence. The EPC, Environmental Protection Commission, looked at this. You have a copy of their report in your packet, noting that they, with a few minor conditions, are likely to approve it at their upcoming meeting. The pool house in the backyard is 2 stories. Harry Rocheville here from McCord Engineering is here to tell us a little bit about the pool house. You can see as part of the proposal, they're putting in a, let's call it 5.5 to 6 foot stone wall, and everything is going to be in that stone wall area, which will enclose the area between the pool house and the house with the pool, the elevated terrace, and the spa. So it will be, instead of digging into the ground, they're building up 5 to 6 feet and putting the pool in that, on that platform, and the spa on that platform. The pool house will be elevated such that the living space of the pool house will be at least 1 foot above the base flood elevation. All the pool equipment will be at elevation 14.5, and as referenced, the ground around it will be at a little over 8. So the pool equipment will be 6 feet in the air. Harry, do you have anything to add in terms of stormwater or flood or coastal impacts?
Thank you, Jeremy. That was a great presentation. I'll take it from there. Harry Rocheville, professional engineer with McCord Engineering, representing the day leaders. Just bear with me for a second. I will share my screen and walk you through our plans here. Okay, subject lot, 32 Plymouth Road, right here at the cul-de-sac. It's a little over an acre. It's currently developed with a single-family residence, a wood deck off the rear of the residence, and access via a driveway right here. There's also a small shed on the property. The remainder of the property consists of lawn. You'll see the topography slopes away from the house in all directions. The 8 contour here, 7, 7, and there's also a drainage ditch in the back that was designed when this was a subdivision many years ago to convey runoff from the entire subdivision in the surrounding properties and convey it to a drainage ditch to the east, which eventually overflows to the Long Island Sound. The wetlands envelope the drainage ditch essentially, which was the reason that we were in front of EPC last week. And as Jeremy said, there was very little comment from EPC. Essentially, very fair to clean up the drainage ditch, remove any sort of landscape clippings, which we certainly agreed to do. And we provided them a planting plan as well to mitigate any disturbance as part of our development for the wetlands and the drainage ditch. As Jeremy stated, the property is served by city sewer and water. Lateral comes in through the front yard, and so does the water service. I'll go over to our proposed plan now. There is an existing stormwater system on site, although very small. There's a catch basin / dry well right here at the corner of the property, which receives runoff from the driveway via this driveway drain and the grate on top of the dry well, as well as the roof leaders from the entire residence. That then overflows to the drainage ditch and conveys to the previously mentioned detention pond that was part of the subdivision. Our proposed development is to remove the aforementioned wood deck and replace it with a elevated hardscape at that same level. That hardscape will lead to the pool located here, which is essentially 4 feet above existing grade, coming off of 12 feet to 8 feet. Then it will step up to an elevated spa and terrace, and then into the pool house will be one more step up. So the pool house is 1 foot above the flood zone. The entire property is within the flood zone. Jeremy, I think you said 13 feet, but the elevation is actually 14 feet, and it's the entire property is within the flood zone, as you'll see. Essentially, the highest lawn elevation is around 8. So this whole neighborhood, essentially during a flood event, will become part of the Long Island Sound. I provided FEMA maps with our application that show the flood zone encompassing essentially that whole peninsula down there. For stormwater management, with this being such a low property, the soils were very poor, which sort of aided in elevating this development to not build inside of high groundwater elevations. So working with Eckerson Design Associates, the landscape architects for the project, we thought the best way forward for stormwater management, being that this is a coastal area and water quality is really the only requirement, we decided to build a rain garden planter surrounding the pool, where I'm showing here. All runoff from the development, besides the roof leaders on this side of the pool house, which will discharge to the surface, run through lawn, and then a planted buffering to the drainage ditch. The remainder of the runoff will be discharged into this rain garden planter, either by strip drains in the patio or roof leaders on the pool house itself, as well as roof leaders on the covered porch. I'll bring you over to the detail for the rain garden. So it'll be something like this. I'm sure you've seen rain gardens in the ground. This one will be sort of, built up within the concrete enclosure of the pool and retaining wall. It'll be 2 feet below the pool coping to provide additional storage during extreme events. We provide our water quality volume with this 10-inch minimum storage volume around the entire rain garden. So we have our water quality volume satisfied with that. So 1 inch of all impervious surfaces that drain to this rain garden will be filtered through the rain garden bioretention soil mixture, captured in an under drain, and then discharged to the same drainage ditch where all of the runoff currently goes. You'll see this pipe here, discharging that runoff into the planted area and eventually to the drainage ditch. A comment from Darren Ostefine with DPW was that this, is certainly within the CAM area, but not exactly on the coast. He was a little concerned with peak rate of runoff to neighbors. We issued a memo on October 4th, 2021 to Darren and Jeremy stating that we ran the calculations for the peak rates of runoff for the existing and proposed conditions, and there is no increase, and in fact, a decrease in peak rate of runoff for the proposed conditions for up to a 50-year design storm. And that the peak elevation within our rain garden for that design storm also doesn't reach the pool elevation. It is just slightly over the overflow grates. As I mentioned before, this is entirely in the flood zone, the whole neighborhood. So the amount of fill that we'll be bringing in as part of this development is negligible once it becomes the flood storage of the Long Island Sound. We have erosion controls around proposed development in the form of a silt fence with construction access off of Plymouth Road to protect adjacent properties during construction. Mike Mitchell with Eckerson Design, the landscape architect, is here if you have any questions, and Kelsey Brennan with Brooks and Palatico, the architect for the pool house, is also here if you have any questions for them. The pool house will be tied in to the water and sanitary sewer of the existing house. And as Jeremy mentioned, the pool equipment is shown here elevated with the pool house, which will be above the flood elevation of 14. That's all I have for now. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have for me or the other design consultants.
Here you go. Thank you. We're going to go with the other design consultants. All right, this pool house. I got to figure out how tall it is in number of feet, and also talk to me about the kitchen and the upstairs 2 storage rooms. We know it's 2 stories, but it's 6 feet in the air, right? So you get 2 stories plus 6 feet in the air, but we don't have any. I don't have any document that says how many feet, linear feet it is, or actual feet. But welcome, Kelsey. I love the name. My daughter's name's Kelsey.
Oh, great name. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share some elevations.
Take your name and position for
Kelsey Brennan with Brooks and Palatico.
Fantastic. Welcome.
So as you said, we are kind of up on this plinth, but doing the best we can to minimize those areas. Speaking to that kitchen function, just some background on the client, they have 8 children. So they're kind of just looking to expand some gathering spaces. So the intent is for this to be truly a pool house. That kitchen area is going to be a bar. They have no intention of putting a stove or any of those functions in.
I know 3 of the kids.
Oh, perfect.
I actually know 4 of the kids.
Okay. And then the second floor is just going to be a game room with like lofts or some, the storage facilities. As you can see from these side areas, it's in kind of a lower roof pitch. So there's not going to be enough space to put any sort of rooms up there.
But you have beds in one of those rooms, right?
We've revised it. Yeah, it's going to be the storage. Once we got into sections, we realized there was no space for that. So
because if the 2 rooms, I mean, right now we do not have an accessory dwelling unit regulation in town. It may come somewhere down the road, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. But if you're going to design this thing as converting those things from storage to bedrooms for those 8 kids, of which I know 4, those have to have fire windows and be all fire code, or else you're not going to be able to do it.
Understood.
Then with regards to the kitchen space, we're not going to have any cooking facilities at this time. I bet you
So we currently have an outdoor kitchen, and that's what they're intending to use for this entertaining space. They had no desire to add cooking facilities to that. That's simply going to be an indoor-outdoor bar, throw some bar stools up there, have a refrigerator. That's the intent.
Okay, because some of the college kids will come back, they'll be sleeping there in the winter. I know, I can tell you that. Okay. So we still need to know the height of the building.
Correct. The height of the building. Sorry, let me switch over.
The elevation or something like that?
Yeah. Sorry, the GoToMeeting is hiding my navigation tools.
We're GoToMeeting people, we're not Zoom people. I'm picking up Kelsey at the airport tomorrow at this time too.
So I don't have it listed on here, but the building height will be close to 25 feet. And there's a line designating that maximum 30-foot building height up there. So we will be under it.
Okay. Can you put that on the plan when you submit them before the final application? We're not gonna hold this thing open.
Coverage
for
and
that.
height, no.
Yeah. We need coverage, lot coverage total. And we need heights on the plans.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else we're missing?
No, I don't think so. Fred, anything?
Fred, anything else we're missing on these plans?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. Commissioners, anything else you want to add, Harry? But I'm going to open up to commissioners for any questions. Kara's saying no. George Riley's giving me a thumbs up. Where's Jennifer? Jennifer, you're good. Jen's good. Jeff Ball's got a thumbs up. Jim Train's got a thumbs up. Okay. And anybody in the general public would like to speak to this application?
No.
Seeing none, we got none. Okay. So Harry, you got a couple items you have to put on your plans. Kelsey, my friend with the same name as my daughter, has got some stuff she's gonna put on plans. And then we're good.
We'll motion to close the hearing. I
Yeah.
guess, or what?
And ask the friends questions. We're done.
Yes.
Great. I would enter, with that said, enter a motion to close. Karen make the motion, yes. Looking for a second. Jim Ryan's got the second. All those in favor?
6-0.
Hearing's closed. Great. Thank you. All right, commissioners, we're gonna punt some things. It's now getting quarter to 11. So we're hitting on the 3-hour time. So if anybody is here for 43 Hillside Avenue, we're gonna punt that to next week,
October 19th.
October 19th. We're also gonna punt the deliberation possible decision of 9 Butler's Island Road to next week. We're also going to punt the deliberations on 108 Nearwater Lane, which is a Tweedy house, to next week. Okay, so 3 more things at the next. So anybody was here for those 3 items, which is Hillside, Butler's Island, and Nearwater Lane, 108. Those are going to be next week, the 19th. We're going to blow through the next one now, Jeremy, at 19 Brush Island Road.
Sure.
Okay, we're going to do one more public hearing since everyone's here, everybody, and then we'll just do the quick deliberation of ethos, and then we're done. Okay, so next item on the agenda for the public hearing is, and I bet you Tom from McCourt Engineering's here.
Yep.
Coastal site plan review, fantastic. Number 253A is an Apple, land filling and regrading application number 367A is an Apple, James and Elizabeth Degnan, I hope I said that right. 19 Brush Island Road, proposal to construct a 16-foot by 32-foot swimming pool to the east of the existing residence and expand the existing patio by 350 square feet to surround the new pool and to perform related site development activities within a regulated area. The 2.165 acre subject property is located on the north side of Brush Island Road, approximately 1,000 feet northwest of its intersection with Nearwater Lane. And it's shown on Assessor's map number 56 is lot 20 in the R1 zone. Jeremy, what do we got?
This application is also for a swimming pool in the coastal area. It's not in the flood zone. It received EPC approval on September 14, 2021. You have a copy of that approval in your packet and in the file. In this case, the applicant is going to put the pool in at grade, not on a 6-foot platform, not digging into but just right at the grade. So there's very minimal regrading, very small terrace and patio. So Tom Nelson, you want to talk a little bit about how this pool fitting into the existing grade and where it sits relative to the house and the coastal resources.
Welcome, Tom.
I got Tom Nelson, professional engineer with McCourt Engineering. Thank you, Jeremy. Let me share my screen here. So the subject property, 19 Brush Island Road, it's on a shared driveway here. It serves 5 houses. This is the existing house. This house was built in 2011. It was approved by EPC and P&Z in 2010. It sits high on the property. The whole house and most of the yard is above the flood elevation. The property slopes down to Holly Pond to the east, tidal wetlands to the south. There's a wooded area, wooded buffer also to the east. Also, I've got this up. There's an existing rain garden on the lot. You can see here that picks up runoff from the existing house and most of the existing driveway. The proposed plan is a very modest, swimming pool, 16 by 32 foot swimming pool, and approximately 350 square feet of patio expansion. The proposed pool sort of notches into an existing patio that's there. It sits in an existing lawn area. This is our flood line here, elevation 14. Our pool coping is at 18.1, so this sits quite a bit higher than the flood zone. I have a couple of pictures that I think sort of help illustrate it a little bit better. This is the patio that we're tying into. So that pool is going to sort of sit partially on the patio, but mostly in this lawn area. This is looking back at the house. This is looking out towards Holly Pond. So the biggest thing that I want to sort of emphasize is the goal is to really kind of reduce the amount of disturbance on the land with this pool. We are proposing a very low retaining wall, about 1.5 feet high on two sides to really kind of minimize the amount of earthwork we have to do. It's all going to be excavation. All that material will be removed from the site. We're not doing any filling. We have adjusted, there's an existing drain that captures the runoff from this area and conveys it down to the rain garden. We did modify that drainage system to make sure it captures that new patio area. We do have capacity within that rain garden. We did inspect that rain garden. It does seem to be doing its job well in terms of renovating that runoff before it gets to the tidal wetlands. We proposed erosion controls surrounding the downhill slope from the pool. Access to the pool makes the most sense across the backside of the house. You can see it's fairly level through here, pretty easy to access. Stockpiling area outside the flood zone. There is a large oak tree that we will be adding tree protection fencing to. And I think, generally that's the quick summary. Happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Thank you, Tom. Very quick summary. So there's no, we're not doing any more outdoor kitchen or any of that stuff's already there.
Nope, it's,
Great.
yep, just a pool.
Got it. I got this one. This one's is a small pool on a big piece of dirt. Any commissioner have any questions on this one? No, I wouldn't say no.
No.
George Riley's good. Jim Rand, your light's on. You're okay?
Oh, sorry. No, I'm okay.
Thank you, sir. And Jeff Ball's got a thumbs up. Great. Kara's got a thumbs up. Anyone in the general public wants to speak to this application?
Nope, no one here.
Nope. I know some of the neighbors that live next door, and if they want to say something, they'd be here. They're not. Okay. With that said, I would entertain a motion to close. Kara Gintley makes a motion. Jim Rand makes a second. Jeff Ball makes a third. All those in favor? Hearing's closed. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you very much.
Well set. All right. We're going to move back to the general meeting.
Yep.
Okay. And the only item left on the general meeting tonight is going to be special permit number 238, E as in Edward, Ethos Wellness LLC, 883 Boston Post Road, proposed to establish a health spa, including massage therapy in the old Hudson Learning Center. I didn't read the whole thing, but we know what it is. This was the Hudson Learning Center. They're not really changing a whole lot. They're taking out desks and chairs and putting in hangout rooms. Remember the Zen room was in the middle? And I made the lady laugh about that one. We received a draft in our packets. It's pretty short, it's a page and a half. I read it, didn't see any typos or any real adjustments. It's all interior. Questions, comments, Scrivener's errors, typos, anything on this one? It was pretty straightforward. They submitted good plans. We went over the parking on this. We think it's going to be similar. It's less parking and in and out as per this Huntington Learning Center was. The employees are going to use the upper lot. They're going to get permits from town if they need it. Pretty straightforward. Karen needs a spa person for this. With that said, I would enter a motion to approve as submitted. Come on, Kara, give me a hand. There you go. Motion by Kara, seconded by Jeff Ball. Right, there we go. All's in favor? There you go, 9-0. And Jennifer said yes. Got it. Okay. Here we go.
Thank you. We'll get that out to you.
Amber Kemp has her
Approval. We'll
approval.
toss it in the mail tomorrow. She'll get it tomorrow afternoon.
She can sign her lease and she'll be open by Thanksgiving. Okay, my hair looks terrible. Anyway, that's it, right? We're gonna close that. The next item on the agenda is other business because Truth or Drugs Commission. We have no other business, right?
Nope, we're ready to adjourn.
Our next coming meeting is gonna be October 19th. That's a special meeting. What's the big thing on that? There's one big thing.
Parklands.
Parklands.
So we're gonna take the leftover stuff from tonight, do that first in the agenda, and then go to the Parklands public hearing, which will take most of the night.
It's a
And,
building, right?
right,
You're recused, Jen? I mean,
Yeah.
because you work in a building?
Yeah.
Wow.
I work in buildings.
and then everyone else can make it.
All right, listen,
George, Jeff, Jim.
you gotta be there for the first half after football practice.
Just need Jennifer just for the first 20 minutes of the meeting.
Yeah. Karen, Jen, we just need you for the beginning and then you can, get up here. All right, with that said, entertain a motion to close. I think Jennifer made the motion. Jim Rand made the second. He's yawning. All's in favor? Motion to close. Thank you, everybody. Sorry for the long meeting, but I think we got a lot done. Appreciate it. Good night, all.